गुड मॉर्निंग टू ऑल ऑफ यू। आज है 6 नवंबर 2024 एज पर द इंडियन टाइम जोन। वेलकम वंस अगेन टू दिस लाइव एनालिसिस। आज ये लाइव थोड़ा पहले स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं बिकॉज ऑफ द यूएस इलेक्शन रिजल्ट्स आना स्टार्ट हो जाएंगे। कई जो उनके स्टेट्स हैं वहाँ पर पोलिंग क्लोज होना स्टार्ट हो गई है, शाम तक सब जगह हो जाएगी। तो वी विल सी, लेट्स सी। फिलहाल के लिए अभी करंट डेटा देखोगे तो काउंटिंग स्टिल कंटिन्यू है, अभी भी स्टार्टिंग फेज है। बट अभी फिलहाल के लिए देखोगे जो डेटा हमारे सामने आया है फ्रॉम एपी, वहाँ पर स्टिल डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प 19 इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज वोट से आगे चल रहे हैं हैरिस से। एंड अगर बाकी डेटा भी देखा जाए फिलहाल के लिए, सबसे पहले अगर मैं बैटिंग मार्केट की बात करूं तो बैटिंग मार्केट में अभी भी पॉली मार्केट, कालसी और प्रेडिक्ट तीनों में डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प आगे चल रहे हैं। एंड मार्केट पर अगर ध्यान रखें तो डॉलर इंडेक्स फ्लैट है, कुछ खास ऊपर नीचे नहीं हो रहा है अभी। बिटकॉइन थोड़ा बहुत मूव किया है, 0.5% ऊपर जा चुका है। गोल्ड भी फ्लैट चल रहा है अभी। लेट्स सी, अगर डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प जीतते हैं तो ये सारे के सारे हमें अपसाइड जाते हुए दिखाई देंगे। डॉलर इंडेक्स, बिटकॉइन और गोल्ड ऑन द सेम साइड। अगर कमला हैरिस विन करती है तो वहाँ पर जो चाइनीज़ करेंसी है युआन, वो हमें अपसाइड जाते हुए दिखाई देगी, अभी फ्लैट चल रही है। साथ ही साथ जो मैक्सिकन करेंसी है पैसो, वो भी अपसाइड जाती हुई दिखाई देगी, बट अभी फिलहाल डाउन ट्रेंड में जा रही है। एंड यूएस का जो 10 ईयर का ट्रेजरी फ्यूचर है वो भी अपसाइड जाता हुआ दिखाई देगा, वो भी हल्का सा भी फ्लैट चल रहा है। तो स्टार्टिंग फेज है, लेट्स सी क्या रिजल्ट आते हैं। काउंटिंग स्टिल कंटिन्यू है। बाकी प्रेसिडेंट की रेस में 19 इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज जो वोट हैं वो डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प के फेवर में अभी चल रहे हैं। हाउस में 4 की लीड है, 2-4। सीनेट में भी 39 रिप्रेजेंटेटिव यूएस के हैं, 38 ऑलरेडी थे। सिर्फ वन अभी काउंट हुआ है। लेट्स सी मार्केट कैसे रिएक्शन देता है इस पे। गोल्ड अभी भी फ्लैट बना हुआ है। गुड मॉर्निंग मोकाल जी, गुड मॉर्निंग। डोंट फॉरगेट टू लाइक द स्ट्रीम गाइस, लाइक भी करते रहो एंड पार्टिसिपेट इन द पोल। व्हाट डू यू थिंक हु विल विन द हु विल बिकम द 47th यूएस प्रेसिडेंट। इंडियन मार्केट में भी इम्पैक्ट पड़ेगा, तो हम थोड़ा सा गिफ्ट निफ्टी को भी लगा लेते हैं। लेट्स ऐड द गिफ्ट निफ्टी एज वेल ओवर हियर। फिलहाल के लिए क्लोजिंग तो फ्लैट हुई थी, अभी देखोगे राइट नाउ तो आपका जो गिफ्ट निफ्टी है दैट इज स्टिल फ्लैट। देखना पड़ेगा क्या इम्पैक्ट होता है, अभी फ्लैट ही चल रहा है करंटली। कुछ खास मोमेंटम हुआ नहीं, हल्का सा गैप डाउन कह सकते हो, हुआ जरूर है। बट वो 1 आवर टाइम फ्रेम के अकॉर्डिंग दिखेगा आपको, रिकवरी है तो फ्लैट ही मानेंगे। कोई बहुत बड़ा गैप अप गैप डाउन नहीं है। हमारा जो इंडियन मार्केट क्लोज हुआ था एज पर द इंडियन मार्केट क्लोजिंग कल, तो जो उसकी क्लोजिंग हुई है यहाँ पर देख सकते हो, इंडियन मार्केट की क्लोजिंग ओवर हियर, तो फ्लैट ही चल रहा है, कुछ खास अभी चेंज हुआ नहीं है। गुड मॉर्निंग टू ऑल ऑफ यू, गुड मॉर्निंग। राज पटेल जी, गुड मॉर्निंग। ओवरऑल चेक करोगे तो अभी भी वोटिंग तो कंटिन्यू ही है, कोई इशू नहीं है। देखो पॉपुलर वोट से ज़्यादा कुछ फ़र्क नहीं पड़ेगा। इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज किस कौन ज़्यादा लेके निकलता है वो देखेंगे। फिलहाल के लिए टोटल 50 स्टेट्स हैं यूएस में। अभी करंटली देखोगे तो इंडियाना, वहाँ पर 11 इलेक्टोरल वोट्स पड़ते हैं। ठीक है, तो उसमें अभी डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प लगभग 61% वोटिंग उनके फेवर में चल रही है, तो काफ़ी आगे लग रहे हैं। एंड दूसरा एक स्टेट है उनका केंटकी, वहाँ पर भी डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प काफ़ी अच्छी लीड में है। इसके अलावा जॉर्जिया में, वहाँ पर आपका पोलिंग बंद हो चुकी है, तो वहाँ पर भी काउंटिंग स्टार्ट हो चुकी है, तो डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प अभी जस्ट स्टार्टिंग ही हुआ है, तो थोड़ी सी लीड में है। फ्लोरिडा में आपका जो सीट उनका स्टेट है वहाँ पर भी थोड़ी बहुत लीड में है वहाँ पर। इसके अलावा वेरमॉन्ट में देखोगे तो वहाँ पर आई थिंक अभी रिपोर्टिंग नहीं हुई है, तो लेट्स सी, होने देते हैं थोड़ा सा। क्रूड ऑयल पे क्या इफेक्ट पड़ेगा? क्रूड ऑयल पे तो इतना कुछ खास डायरेक्ट इम्पैक्ट नहीं होना चाहिए। आई एम नॉट एक्सपेक्टिंग दैट दैट मच ह्यूज इम्पैक्ट इन क्रूड ऑयल। बाय द वे क्रूड ऑयल अभी ओपन हो गया है। बट देखो नॉर्मली अगर डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प जीतते हैं तो प्राइस को ऊपर जाना चाहिए। डिपेंड करता है, और भी बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स हैं। कल ही एक न्यूज आई है, वो जो आपके इजराइल के प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैं उन्होंने अपने डिफेंस मिनिस्टर को ही निकाल दिया है, और ईरान अटैक करने की सोच रहा है इजराइल पर। तो देयर आर लॉट्स ऑफ फैक्टर्स नीड टू सी। अभी जहाँ पर हमारा इंडियन मार्केट क्लोज हुआ था, मैं इंडियन मार्केट की बात कर रहा हूँ, जो हमारा इंडियन मार्केट क्लोज हुआ था वहाँ से आप अगर चेकआउट करोगे तो फ्लैट ही चल रहा है। दिस इज इंडियन मार्केट क्लोजिंग आई थिंक। ये इंडियन मार्केट की क्लोजिंग है, लास्ट कैंडल इंडियन मार्केट की क्लोजिंग की जो बनी हुई है। तो वहां से अगर देखोगे अभी फॉरेक्स में हम फ्लैट ही चल रहे हैं, तो कोई बहुत बड़ा गैप अप गैप डाउन अभी तो नहीं दिखा रहा है, फ्लैट ही मार्केट ओपन है। कोई बहुत बड़ा गैप अप गैप डाउन यहाँ पर तो नहीं है। सेम नेचुरल गैस में देखोगे तो नेचुरल गैस में भी जो हमारी क्लोजिंग हुई थी एमसीएक्स में इंडियन मार्केट के अकॉर्डिंग, वहां से मार्केट फ्लैट ही है ऑलमोस्ट। फ्लैट ही है ना, हाँ फ्लैट ही दिखाई रहा सर। नहीं, थोड़ा सा रिकवर किया नेचुरल गैस, थोड़ा सा रिकवरी है। लगभग 1% अपसाइड चल रहा है नेचुरल गैस अभी, हमारी जो इंडिया में क्लोजिंग हुई थी वहां से। बिटकॉइन थोड़ा बहुत ऊपर जा रहा है, बिटकॉइन थोड़ा बहुत रिकवरी में है। एंड गिफ्ट निफ्टी भी फ्लैट चल रहा है और गोल्ड भी फ्लैट है। गोल्ड को देखना पड़ेगा, गोल्ड कैसे रिएक्शन करता है। एक बार डॉलर इंडेक्स को भी देखें, डॉलर इंडेक्स तो कंटिन्यूअसली गिरे ही जा रहा है बस। लेट्स सी, मैं चार्ट भी लगा देता हूँ बाकी। इंडियन मार्केट में भी देखेंगे क्या इम्पैक्ट होता है। इंडियन मार्केट का भी इम्पोर्टेंट है। वी नीड टू सी what kind of impact will be there in Indian market as well.
That we talk about when we're looking at an area like the Atlanta metro. There's 9 solidly blue counties. There is Fayette County just to the south. That's going to be one that could prove as a bellwether. That's one that's been a little bit tighter as far as last elections go. We've also looked at Cherokee and Forsyth counties. Those are just north of the Atlanta metro. So there are 9 solidly blue counties that we talk about when it comes to the Atlanta metro. There are a few that could be competitive, and those are going to be some of the things that we're going to be watch as the election progresses. Riley, one of my questions for you here as we continue on with the evening is how significantly could issues impact turnout in these races? I'm talking issues like abortion, issues like the border.
Oh, abortion is huge. The Harris campaign has poured a lot of resources into campaigning on abortion. We saw in 2022 and in 2023, after the Roe v. Wade was overturned, this is a hugely
इतनी सुबह लाइव ग्रेट यूएस मार्केट ओपनिंग थी, कल बताया था मॉर्निंग पे लाइव रहेंगे। वाओ, जॉर्जिया में देखोगे तो कमला हैरिस आगे हो चुकी है। जॉर्जिया में अगर चेक करें तो कमला हैरिस इज नाउ 3 परसेंटेज पॉइंट आगे है। अभी सिर्फ 3% वोट ही हुआ है, बट 3 परसेंटेज वोट आगे निकल चुकी है। ओके, वेरमॉन्ट में भी आई थिंक, यहाँ तो आई थिंक ये सारा उन्हीं को जाना है, डेमोक्रेट्स को। डॉलर इंडेक्स भी थोड़ा बहुत अपसाइड मूव करने में तो लगा हुआ है। बिटकॉइन भी 1% ऊपर है। गोल्ड फ्लैट ही बना हुआ है स्टिल, नथिंग चेंज्ड।
Now in the Florida Senate race. And the gap has widened here between incumbent Republican Rick Scott and his Democratic challenger, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell here. So don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Only a little more than half of these estimated votes coming in, according to the Associated Press here. But Scott's lead is widening. So I don't know what that means for the rest of the night, for the rest of these Senate races here, but does this say that maybe Scott wasn't facing as much of a challenge as Democrats hoped, or is that Republicans feared?
We will see for sure whether that ends up being the case. Democrats were clearly very optimistic about their chances. That's why they put resources into this race. But I'll tell you, I talked to a number of strategists on both sides of the aisle who were not totally counting on this race to be a win for the Democrats. When I talked to a Republican strategist yesterday, he told me that Republicans losing the House would be a tremendous shock to the system. And part of that reasoning is that Republicans, they thought Rick Scott would keep this seat. So this isn't a totally unexpected outcome. It's not done yet. It was always supposed to be competitive, but I think this is kind of to be expected.
All right, Austin, you have the map there in Florida as well, looking at some of these counties and how they're going here. What does it say?
Yeah, and you know what? Let's pull up some of the counties, and really, this is something that we're going to start seeing, that some of these bigger metro areas are going to start filling in with more blue, and some of these rural areas are going to start filling in with more red. Miami-Dade County right now, as far as the Senate race goes, Scott has a 10-point advantage in Miami-Dade County, and let's make sure that we get those results up there. So basically, we're talking about Scott running up the numbers in a very populous county. This is just over 50% of the votes counted, quite a bit of votes being tabulated. This is going to be one of the biggest bellwethers about how Florida goes, is looking at larger counties like that. Let's look at Orange County. This is where Orlando is. Mucarsel-Powell has a 17-point advantage over Scott. But ultimately, Andrew, when we look at these maps and when we're talking about the balance of power in Congress, we're talking about an uphill battle for the Democrats. That's something that we've all been watching for. Florida was one of those few states where the Democrats could have made up some ground, but as more results coming in, it's looking like Scott is taking more of an advantage.
All right, Austin, thanks so much. We want to bring into the conversation yet again Riley Ronderson there at Notice. You've been following all of these themes really all year, and happy election night to all of our new viewers. This is what we do on Live Now from Fox. We bring you expert analysis and context on the biggest stories of the day and this one of the year. We are waiting for this live event to take place there in Fulton County. Caroline Elliott, Fox News multimedia reporter, telling us that the Secretary of State there in Georgia just confirmed Georgia will set a new record today with 5.2 million votes cast in this election here. We're also anticipating an update from officials in Fulton County there right now. Let's check in with Christina Evans. She has her pulse on what's going on there on social media, specifically there in Georgia. Christina, what is social media saying? What will they say in this press conference?
Andrew, so of course, like you just said, eyes are on Georgia right now just because of some of the news that has been coming out earlier today. In fact, if you did hear that Secretary of State earlier in the day, Brad Raffensperger, he made a comment in a live press conference talking about how this is the wrong Georgia to mess with as far as election interference. And here in our social center, we've been getting some updates directly from officials in DeKalb County as well, because more bomb threats were called there in the state. Now, this isn't the first time that we're seeing those happen across the social media platform again today, that we're getting those updates that they're happening at those polling locations. I do want to show you right now a full look at that screen there. This is what the DeKalb County Police Department has now tweeted out as well. So they let it know that DeKalb County has now responded to multiple bomb threats. Those locations are also being listed there, but they are now reopened as well. So we're taking a look again at some of the things that are coming out from the social media aspect. This is what we know so far from the Associated Press. These are overwhelmingly Democratic suburbs areas that voting had to be suspended at those locations until police were able to confirm that there were no bombs. But right now, as you can see on your screen, those locations have now reopened. County officials, though, say that they're also seeking a court order to extend voting. This is very routine in Georgia when a polling place is disrupted. Earlier today, again, polling places in Fulton and Gwinnett County were also targeted. The Secretary of State did point out that he believes that had to do with Russian interference. Those threats, though, did turn out to be false. So again, we're continuing here on Live Now from Fox to track some of the latest updates that we're having here in our studio with some of those updates, again, from Georgia, as we're looking at those bomb threats, whether or not they were credible or not. But we do know that now they are seeking to keep some of those polling locations in DeKalb County, one of those counties that was really looked at in the 2020 election, open a bit longer so voters can make sure that their voice is heard.
All right, Christina Evans there. Thanks so much. We do have officials there in Fulton County stepping up right now. Christina, we'll check in just a moment here. Let's listen as some of these officials take to the podium here. Let's watch. All right, here we have it. This is in Fulton County, Georgia. Let's listen.
Thank you so much for being here on Election Night 2024. We are here in the Fulton County Election Hub, and we are about to begin our evening briefing, our post-election briefing. My name is Jessica Corbett, and I'm the Director of External Affairs for Fulton County. And I just want to thank all the journalists who are here from all over the world covering this election. You are about to hear from several officials here who've been part of our team today. You'll first hear from Fulton County Chairman Rob Pitts, followed by our Fulton County Election Board Chair. We happen to be joined tonight by our State Election Board Chair. You will also hear from our Director of Elections for Fulton County, Nadine Williams, as well as Fulton County Police Chief and Fulton County Manager. So I'll kick it over to Chairman Pitts.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you all for being here with us again. I told you in the beginning that we were ready, and the results of today's election proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Fulton County, Georgia was ready for the 2024 election. We have had 177 precincts, 1,800 well-trained professional poll workers who did an outstanding job today. In this magnificent facility here, which I think is due in large part because if you recall, those of you who were with us in 2020, we were scattered all over the county, different locations. But because of the $30 million investment that the Fulton County Board of Commissioners made, this facility has allowed us to consolidate all of our operations under one roof. And the result of that has been an outstanding 2024 election. I had the privilege of personally visiting 31 of the 177 precincts today, and I can report to you that I saw no unusual problems, no major problems whatsoever. Our workers were courteous, they were professional, and they were well trained and took care of business. Now, we are aware that there were several bomb threats. Those threats were handled professionally by our chief, and you'll hear from him in a few minutes. As a result of that, 5 of the 177 precincts will be staying open a little later, a little later, meaning after 7 p.m., anywhere from 10 minutes to 45 minutes, based upon the time that they were closed. So I am personally well pleased, thrilled with the results of today's election, and I will give Fulton County, Georgia, an A for the great work that we've done. I'd like for you to hear from the chair of our Board of Registrations and Elections, Ms. Sherry Allen.
Good evening, good evening. Yesterday I said that you were going to see the best run elections in Fulton County, and I think you have. We did have bomb threats, we can't control criminal activity, but there weren't waiting lines. Things were resolved fast for voters. I personally went out to sites when there were problems and resolved them, talked to managers. I want to thank all of the poll workers, all of the poll managers, all of the monitors, all of the poll watchers, everyone who helped make this a safe, secure, transparent, and accurate election. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm going to introduce the chair of the State Election Board, John Rivera.
Well, I really don't do interviews, so I guess I'm going to do all of them at once tonight. My name is John Freer. I'm chairman of the State Election Board. I want to talk about the great things that I've seen, because over the last couple of weeks I've had a chance to go across Georgia, from South Georgia to North Georgia, and talk to election superintendents across the state and visit over 20 polling locations. And every one that I've been to, all I've seen is good things. I've seen some extremely dedicated poll workers, extremely dedicated superintendents and poll managers, and I am really optimistic that this may be the best election Georgia's ever held. Chairman Allen has invited me to see many polling locations in Fulton County. We went all the way from the north to the south, saw about 9 polling locations, and every one of them ran efficiently and effectively. The voters were happy, the poll managers were happy, the poll workers were happy, and when I see that happening, it makes you feel good. And the one thing a lady told me today when I was in a poll in Gwinnett County, she said, the people that are criticizing the way the polling's going, if they would just come work a poll one time, and understand all the checks and balances that we have in Georgia to make sure that it's fair and safe election, then they would understand that we do have fair, safe, and honest elections in the state of Georgia. And I want to thank the Secretary of State's office. They've done a great job with that. I want to thank all those poll workers out there and all those election superintendents, and Chairman Allen for helping turn around what admittedly was not the greatest election in 2020, but Fulton County hopefully is going to have a great one this year. I got confidence in them, and I'm appreciative for all that they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And our Director of Elections is Nadine Williams.
Good evening. On behalf of the Fulton County Department of Registration and Elections, I want to extend our sincere gratitude to the poll workers and election staff for their dedication into conducting today's successful election. We want to provide a special thank you to the County Manager, Board of Commissioners, Board of Registration and Elections, and the numerous Fulton County departments that supported us in this important effort. We planned, we prepared, and we delivered. Today, over 92,000 voters cast their ballot, adding to the 417,000 who participated in advanced voting, and more than 26,000 absentee by mails that were accepted. these numbers surpass the total turnout for the 2020 election. Despite a few attempted disruptions, our staff and poll workers remain steadfast in their commitment to ensuring a smooth process. And in regards to these disruptions, there will be 5 precincts that have to remain open past the 7 o'clock poll closing. Those locations are C.H. Gallant Elementary School, which will remain open until 7:15, Etris Darnell Community Center, which will remain open until 7:45, Lake Forest Elementary School, which will remain open until 7:10, Southwest Arts Center, which will remain open until 7:43, and Northwood Elementary School, which will remain open until 7:45 p.m. Those locations and times are posted on our website and have been posted at the precincts. So now we are going to proceed with the election night tabulation, and we'll post final results tonight on our website when completed. You should be able to see the advanced voting and the absentee by mail results before 8 today. And again, we thank everyone who made this election possible.
All right, now our police chief for Fulton County, Georgia, Chief Yates.
Good evening. As I told you yesterday, we had 177 voting locations that we put. Hold it up. Is that better?
Yes, a lot better.
Good evening. As I told you yesterday, we had 177 polling locations, and we placed an officer at each one. That wouldn't have been possible without the help of every law enforcement agency within Fulton County coming together to make that happen. We planned heavily for the incident of a bomb threat being called in, and it's a good thing we did, because that's the only thing that happened today was 32 bomb threats at different polling locations. 32. We were able to clear 27 of them very quickly without the need for an evacuation. 5 of them, the polls were temporarily closed down at the poll manager's request while we conducted the sweep, and they were reopened. We don't know where the threats came from at this point, and it is an active investigation, but we do intend.
Guys, if you look at the dollar index continuously going up, almost 0.45% is going up. Chinese currency yuan is going down, and Bitcoin 2% up हो चुका है guys. Bitcoin is 2% up after the market is open today. जब से एनालिसिस कर रहे हैं, ऑल टाइम हाई के काफ़ी करीब है, शायद ब्रेकआउट भी कर सकता है, क्या पता आज ही कर दे. ठीक है, all these are the signs, like कि यूएस प्रेसिडेंट कहीं ना कहीं विनर हो सकते हैं उस केस में. तो बिटकॉइन ठीक ठाक 2% अप चल रहा है, एंड डॉलर इंडेक्स भी ठीक ठाक अपसाइड जा रहा है. गोल्ड थोड़ा सा स्लिप किया है, ज़्यादा नहीं, थोड़ा बहुत नीचे आने की कोशिश में है. सो ऑल दीज साइंस, अगर डोनाल्ड ट्रंप जीतते हैं, डॉलर इंडेक्स ऊपर जाना चाहिए, यूएस डॉलर मजबूत होगा, बिटकॉइन ऊपर जाएगा, काफ़ी ऊपर चला गया, गोल्ड भी ऊपर जाना चाहिए, बट फिलहाल के लिए फ्लैट चल रहा है. नॉर्मली गोल्ड और आपका डॉलर इंडेक्स अपोजिट चलते हैं, तो दोनों एक साथ चल तो नहीं सकते, बट सेफ हेवन में बाइंग भी आनी चाहिए. बाकी अगर कमला हैरिस जीतती तो युआन, जो चाइनीज करेंसी है, ऊपर जानी चाहिए थी, वो जा नहीं रही है. मैक्सिकन करेंसी है, वो भी ऊपर जानी चाहिए थी, वो भी डाउन आ रही है. और यूएस की जो 10 ईयर की ट्रेजरी फ्यूचर है, वो भी डाउन ही जा रहा है. तो दीज आर द साइंस कि मार्केट तो ये प्रेडिक्ट सोच रहा है या फिर प्रेडिक्ट कर रहा है, जितना भी दिख रहा है इनिशियल रिजल्ट से, कि डोनाल्ड ट्रंप जीत सकते हैं. एंड अगर आप बैटिंग मार्केट पे देखोगे प्रेसिडेंट की रेस पे, तो ऑलमोस्ट जितने भी बैटिंग मार्केट के आपके वेबसाइट हैं, पॉली मार्केट, काल्सी और प्रेडिक्ट, सब यही प्रेडिक्ट कर रहे हैं कि डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ही जीतेंगे. सीनेट की रेस भी रिपब्लिकन पार्टी, और हाउस आई थिंक शायद डेमोक्रेट्स के पास रहे. इलेक्शन रिजल्ट्स अभी इनिशियली हैं। एक थोड़ा सा यहाँ पर लास्ट अगर 2020 का मैप देखोगे, उसके उससे कंपेयर करोगे 2020 का यूएस इलेक्शन का मैप जो था, तो यहाँ पर एक जॉर्जिया दिख रहा है जो फ्लिप हो सकता है शायद। इनिशियल रिजल्ट तो यही बता रहे हैं। ये आपका 2020 का है इलेक्टोरल मैप, जहाँ पर जो बाइडेन जीत गए थे एक्चुअली, आपको पता होगा। तो उस केस में जितने अभी फिलहाल अभी हमें जो करंट दिख रहा है सब वही था। एक सिर्फ यहाँ पर जॉर्जिया जो स्टेट है वहाँ पर बाइडेन जीत गए थे डेमोक्रेट पार्टी से, ट्रम्प हार गए थे थोड़े से मार्जिन से आई थिंक। एंड अभी फिलहाल के लिए ऐसा लग रहा है कि इस बार वापस फ्लिप कर देंगे जॉर्जिया को। यहाँ पर 16 इलेक्टोरल वोट्स हैं एंड अभी देखोगे लगभग 60% जा चुका है डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प के फेवर में। बाकी देखते हैं। ये एक एक्सपेक्ट था वर्जीनिया को शायद चेंज फ्लिप हो सकता है वर्जीनिया, बट नहीं। ये इस बार भी लगता है डेमोक्रेट्स के पास ही जाएगा। बाकी नेवाडा हो गया, एरिजोना होगा, विस्कॉन्सन है, इसके अलावा मिशिगन है, पेंसिल्वेनिया है, यहाँ पर भी वोटिंग आई थिंक ये सारे स्विंग स्टेट्स हैं। तो यहाँ पर भी नज़र रखनी पड़ेगी कहाँ मार्केट मूव करता है।
Here, I mean, we're looking at all zeros here, but nonetheless, the Associated Press, knowing that this is a reliably red state, not a surprise at all that Justice comes away with the victory. They feel comfortable enough to make this one red.
So I think that's a good moment to kind of pause, and for the viewers who might not understand this, we're relying on the Associated Press. How can a media organization like the AP project a race call without numbers there? And I think this is really important to kind of hammer home here. Why, Austin?
Ultimately, this was one of the races we knew was going to flip red. There was Senator Joe Manchin. He was an independent. We knew Jim Justice, the Republican, had a huge advantage over the mayor of Wheeling, West Virginia. This was not going to be surprising at all. And as soon as some of these numbers do start coming in, most assuredly, they're going to be heavily lopsided in Jim Justice's favor. In the meantime, let's look at the wider senatorial map here, because this is the balance of power. There's still a lot of empty notches to fill in. As we've been mentioning, the Democrats have a lot more seats to defend, but the Republicans, so far, with one flip, that's what this candy cane, I'm going to call it a candy cane. Let's zoom in on it. It's basically pinstriped there.
Right.
That means that a seat has flipped. That seat went from independent to Republican. We're going to be watching out for more of those types of races as the night progresses.
All right, to your point, no surprises here. This was projected, but you're right. We got a seat flip there in West Virginia for Senate Republicans gaining this seat there. And so Joe Manchin, to your point, retiring, not seeking re-election, and all intents and purposes, many expected this race to go this way as well. But Jim Justice is vacating, Austin, the governor's mansion. Just briefly here, who will replace him there in Charleston, West Virginia? You see there the governor's race in West Virginia. Pat Morrissey besting his Democratic rival there, Steve Williams, to take the governor's mansion there in West Virginia. Pat Morrissey, Austin, he's, I believe, the current Republican Attorney General in West Virginia. So it just seems kind of like musical chairs in West Virginia politics tonight. Justice to Washington, Morrissey to the capital of West Virginia.
Yeah, ultimately, what I'm going to say about this race, again, we're working with the AP's figures all night, and I've got the results up here. And again, we're looking at all zeros, but that's just to have a sizable lead over Steve Williams. Pat Morrissey headed to the governor's mansion.
All right, Austin, thanks so much. Wanted to definitely get in all of those race calls there. So we still have officials speaking in Fulton County, Georgia. We also have some of these live vantage points as well. That's at a polling place in Maricopa County, Arizona, I believe. It's about 5:40 there, Mountain Time. We also have live looks in Washington, D.C., not too far from the White House there on the campus of Howard University. That's where Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz will hold their election night watch party. We also have the one there in West Palm Beach where the Trump-Vance election night watch party will be held there as well. But like I said, all eyes briefly were focused on West Virginia, and this is an AP race call. Republican Jim Justice defeating Democrat Glenn Elliott in the West Virginia Senate race. Justice, and here, to your point, Austin, his dog, baby dog, going to Washington here. In the meantime, yes, please.
Ultimately, what we're looking at here are a number of gubernatorial races across the country. Only one of them was expected to be competitive, and we're starting to get an idea of what those results are looking like. Only 7% of the vote is in so far. New Hampshire is the one gubernatorial seat that we didn't know which way it was going to go. Chris Sununu, the outgoing governor, deciding not to run for re-election. So far, Democrat Joyce Craig has a very small lead over Kelly Ayotte. So we're looking at 49.4% to 48.5%. Only 0.9 of a percentage point separating the two right now. But again, only 7% of the votes tallied. It'll be interesting, Andrew, to see how that gubernatorial race in New Hampshire plays out as the night goes on.
Yeah, let's bring into the conversation more expertise and analysis, Austin. We're going to do that with our friend there, Bill Scher at the Washington Monthly. He joins us. Bill, thanks for being with us. I know you're really busy tonight. If we can, let's just get you to respond to some of those race calls we just brought our viewers coming to us from West Virginia. No surprises there, right, Bill?
Yeah, no surprises. Nothing that I think you should treat as a bellwether. In 2020, almost the entire country shifted a little blue relative to 2016, but with some notable exceptions. Florida actually got more red. So when 4 years ago, when the Florida numbers came in trending Trump, a lot of people freaked out, thought perhaps that was going to be the bellwether for the rest of the country, and it was actually the opposite. And so this year, maybe there isn't a nationwide shift one way or the other. Maybe it's more of a mix. So we're looking at, some people are looking at particular counties with partial returns, but it's still very early to be doing extrapolations right now, in my opinion.
Okay, so that's the theme right now, where we stand. You're saying too early for any of these extrapolations to get some of the bellwethers out there reading the tea leaves. You and I and Austin Westwell, we've done that all year covering this election here. We actually do have a live picture up right now. Okay, you can see there, this is live. So we're going to be getting these in throughout the course of the evening at these election night watch parties. This one there for Mark Robinson in North Carolina. Of course, he's the lieutenant governor right now. He was embroiled in scandal in the latter half of this campaign here. We also have some results coming in from the North Carolina gubernatorial election here. Let's take that. All right, his challenger, the Democratic Attorney General Josh Stein, up 75 over Robinson's 21. This is only with 2% of estimated votes counted here. Bill, I got to ask, Robinson's in for quite a tough night, is he not, here over Stein?
Yeah, this is not going to be a nail-biter. Robinson's campaign imploded with the revelations about his posting on porn sites and calling himself a Nazi. The question is, does that drag down Donald Trump in the state, or did Trump manage to fully separate himself from Robinson and have the races be treated, separately? Obviously, Trump's going to outrun Robinson, but it's been a very touch-and-go race. Polls have showed statistical dead heat. Remains to be seen, who has the upper hand in the state.
I want to talk. I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, Bill, but will Republicans do any soul searching about candidate choice and selection when it comes to these primaries in these especially kind of purplish, bluish, reddish states like North Carolina going forward? Will any lessons be learned from Mark Robinson as a candidate? I mean, he's the sitting lieutenant governor right now.
I mean, they should, but it all depends on how well Donald Trump does, because Donald Trump sets the tone. The candidate recruitment for Republicans in 2024 was better than 2022. You had fewer Kari Lakes, but you do actually still have Kari Lake running for an office in Arizona. So they didn't wipe the slate clean, and obviously Mark Robinson was an obvious misfire. But other candidates were more traditional, like McCormick in Pennsylvania or Sheehy in Montana. Moreno in Ohio. And we don't know how well these people are going to do yet either. But you had less ticking time bombs than you did with Mark Robinson. But again, if Trump pulls this out, he is not someone that's going to tell Republicans that letting your freak flag fly can still work, and they may take more gambles. If he loses another presidential race, Donald Trump, then you got a much bigger reckoning that goes on inside the GOP.
And let's just put a fine point on North Carolina. I've got the map behind me showing the Tar Heel state right now. So we're looking at the major metro areas of Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh. There are a lot of rural communities out here that are going to be discussed, but also Western North Carolina was hit by Hurricane Helene, and there were a lot of questions over whether that would impact voting there. Can you just put into context for us how important the Tar Heel state is in this cycle? It is one of those 7 crucial battlegrounds that we've been talking so much about.
Kamala Harris has a path to 270 without North Carolina and without Georgia. Those 2 states we're looking at right now, because those are the battleground states where polls close on the early side. If she wins the blue wall, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and she picks up the 2nd congressional district of Nebraska, which she is expected to, and she holds all the other states that were blue last time outside of the battlegrounds, that's 270. If Kamala Harris wins North Carolina or Georgia, that is a very strong indication that she's going to have a good night tonight. But I'll give you a caveat there. If Kamala can't trade North Carolina for Pennsylvania, she can't trade Georgia for Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is 19 electoral votes and Georgia and North Carolina are 16 each. So if we call North Carolina for Kamala early, I'd say that's a pretty good chance she's going to be the president of the United States, but I wouldn't say it's a done deal yet.
So, Bill, though, back to Austin's question about the impacts of Hurricane Helene, have we seen any in some of the early voting in North Carolina and same-day voting as well? That was a key concern, especially from Republicans and the Trump campaign, about electoral integrity, voter integrity, especially in parts of western North Carolina. Have you seen anything to suggest that those fears came to fruition?
I haven't seen it, but I would not put myself as the expert on what was happening in western North Carolina right now. And obviously final turnout numbers are not, we're not going to know for a little bit. So we're going to want to compare those to 2020 to see if there was a dip there.
So I want to go to some of these other gubernatorial races. This one there in New Hampshire. So we have 10% of estimated votes. I know we're kind of ping-ponging over the map here, but it's gubernatorial cycle as well. Kelly Ayotte, the Republican, very, very closely over her Democratic challenger, Joyce Craig, and the numbers changing in real time. Only 10% estimated votes count. It's still early. Chris Sununu, the incumbent Republican, I believe either term limit or opting not to seek re-election there. Bill, what do we know about New Hampshire and with the presidential contest too here?
Well, this is a light blue state. It has gone Democratic for the presidentials for some time, although it got a little close in 2016 when it was Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. But it's also a bit of an old school New England Republican state on the gubernatorial level, libertarian streak. Chris Sununu was a popular Republican governor there, not seen as extreme, not seen as a Trumper. And Kelly Ayotte was trying to run in that mold, and that's why it's a more competitive race, and the presidential race is going to be there.
All right, so I want to move away from this. We're staying in New Hampshire, though. We do have some of these results coming in on the presidential level in New Hampshire there. Harris up over Trump 55-44, but only 10% of estimated votes counted. Austin Westfall and I, we were discussing earlier today the campaign's key focus or lack of focus thereof on New Hampshire in the last couple of weeks here. Bill, have you noticed that? Should we be paying attention to New Hampshire at the presidential level right now?
Well, Vance did a late trip there, but I think that was more bravado than serious play. But of course, the Trump campaign might be a little delusional at times and do things that they think they have a shot at when they really don't. So there's no evidence in those numbers there that this is going to become tighter, tight enough to actually make this something that's a jump ball. So this is looking pretty safely blue to me.
Did Trump put boots on the ground in 2016 or 2020 in states that nobody thought he would win?
I mean, he's never been one to really have a robust get out the vote operation, and I think that's one of the big looming questions about this race. He took a real gamble on get out the vote operations by outsourcing it to Elon Musk and this other group called Turning Point and a couple others. What Trump has done in every race he's run is visited states that he has little chance in to try to show a sense of bravado. He spent a lot of time in Virginia and Colorado in 2016. He went to Minnesota in 2016 and 2020, and this time around he went to New Mexico and Colorado and New York City infamously a week ago. So he's always tried to give this sense that he's going to really, scramble the map when the map looks to be, pretty rigid.
All right, and we are tracking more of these races here. Bill Scher, we're going to take, and also we're going to take just our final commercial break of this hour, and polls will close soon in more of these battleground states at the top of the next hour. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us. Some of the graphics on your screen, including that number in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, you see there it says 750.7K. Well, in addition to myself and 750,000 others, you are watching us in real time here on Live Now from Fox, and we thank you. If you're new to us, we thank you again. This is what we do here. Now, you also notice what just rose up there in the lower left-hand of your screen. That is our Electoral College tally. And you see there Trump with 23 electoral votes right now as it stands. Harris with 3. But like I said, it is still early. That magic number, 270 for the Electoral College as well. Bringing into the conversation, Austin Westfall again in the Live Now newsroom and Bill Scher at the Washington Monthly. We do have some of these numbers in from West Virginia. Yes, the races have been called there, but we finally have a good sense, especially in this Senate race there between Justice and Elliott. Justice with the race call there from the Associated Press. You see the breakdown, 57 to 40. This was only 7% of estimated votes counted, and that was to be expected there. Just kind of wanted to tie a bow, Austin, on these results coming to us out of West Virginia. Jim Justice going to the Senate in Washington.
And that was not a surprise, Andrew. There's another race that we're starting to get some results in for that is something that's been hotly contested. That is Ohio. This has been a close one, reportedly one of the most expensive Senate races on record between Senator Sherrod Brown and businessman Bernie Moreno. Sherrod Brown is a 3-term Democratic incumbent. He has built a strong coalition in this red state. Ohio, by the way, not too long ago, was considered a battleground state. It's not anymore. It's expected to vote for Trump. So that means that Sherrod Brown very much could be facing his toughest challenge yet in 18 years in Bernie Moreno. Ohio was once, of course, the prototypical battleground. Now this could be the last example of Ohio being a true battleground if Moreno is to take this seat. Again, though, only 9% of votes tallied so far. There's still a lot more before we know how this one falls.
Bill, I know you have to go at the top of the hour, though. Everyone's watching this key Senate race there in the Buckeye State, Brown versus Moreno here. Any thoughts on that? We have some early numbers in.
Yeah, the early numbers seem to give Moreno a little bit of an edge. And look, if Moreno wins that race and flips the Ohio Senate seat, pretty darn good chance Republicans are going to be taking the Senate because Democrats, because you already have West Virginia, the Republicans need a net of 2. So I'm sorry, they would need 2 to if Kamala Harris is president. If you would need to offset a Ohio flip with a win either in Montana or Texas, which are both uphill for Democrats. Weird things can happen, but you feel pretty good about the Republicans' chances if Ohio gets called for Moreno.
All right, Bill Scher with the Washington Monthly. Bill, I know you have to go. Thanks so much for making time. We'll talk soon.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right, still, though, with Austin Westfall here in the Live Now newsroom. Austin, let's focus our efforts a little bit more, though, on the Ohio Senate race.
Yeah.
This is a very expensive race. So many people are watching this, and for Republicans, it's a pickup opportunity here. Sherrod Brown in the political battle of his life, isn't he?
Democrats and Republicans have been sweating this one out, Andrew. And let's just highlight here some of what we're seeing, because this helps us visualize just how things are going. As he mentioned, we are talking about a closing path for the Democrats to gain or to remain in control of the Senate. There are still a lot of these seats that are still undecided. There are so many toss-up Senate races still to be decided. The key ones, as he mentioned, though, and I'll focus in, Florida, which is leaning for Rick Scott already. That's one that the Democrats are going to need to pick up if they want a fighting chance. Texas is the other one. Colin Allred will need to pull off an upset against Ted Cruz. There's also this kind of surprising race in Nebraska. An independent candidate has been giving a surprising challenge to the Republican that's in that seat there. Nonetheless, I mean, if we're looking at the map, there are so many Democrats that are facing very close races. We're talking Bob Casey in Pennsylvania, as he alluded to. John Tester, who is another 3-term Democratic incumbent who has built a strong Democratic coalition within his red state, he's facing his first real challenge against Tim Sheehy. One could argue that the past 3 Senate cycles have been in the Democrats' favor. The first one came in an unpopular year for Republicans because of the war, and then the second time Tester was elected, that was a blue wave because of Obama. The third time Tester in Montana was elected, it was that midterm year after Trump was elected. So we saw another blue wave. Montana, Ohio, a lot of parallels to draw there. Perhaps their toughest uphill battle. Polls, by the way, say that this seat is more likely to flip than Ohio.
All right, and Austin, Apologize there. Austin, we are in a new hour. It's 6 o'clock here Mountain Time. It's 8 o'clock there on the East Coast. That means polls have now closed or are about to close in states like Pennsylvania.
Like we're getting some results in Pennsylvania and Texas.
That's right.
These are populating in real time. And you know what? Let's hover over these and see what we can from these. So this is the Texas Senate race. Colin Allred and Ted Cruz. This is something that a lot of people have been fascinated by. Very early results. Only 8% of the votes counted so far, but so far, we do see Colin Allred with a 13 roughly point lead over Ted Cruz. Only 8% of the votes in. You can't really draw anything from that few of the votes being tabulated. I think we're hearing a little bit more out of Florida as well. I think I saw this go darker red. It used to be lightly red, and now it looks like this has a check mark on it, which would indicate that the Associated Press has actually called this Senate race in Florida for Rick Scott. We're seeing Scott with a comfortable lead over a 10-point lead to McCarcel Powell. It looks like one of those, some might say, small chances that Democrats could steal one from the Republicans. It looks like that door is closing in Florida specifically.
All right, so you're right. We do have a race call there in Florida. It seems like Republicans breathing a sigh of relief there in the Sunshine State. Rick Scott stays there in the Senate. Let's put up the numbers here because it looks like, to your point, the Associated Press did call that race. This is the breakdown right now with 82% of estimated votes counted between Scott and Mucarsel Powell. To your point, though, we are tracking yet another Senate race in Texas that Democrats were somewhat bullish on as well here between Colin Allred, the Democratic congressman, and Republican Senator Ted Cruz. Too early to tell yet for this race, but we are getting results just in here. In the meantime, though, we do have some new vantage points coming to us from the election night watch parties of both Trump and Harris here. That one there on the campus of Howard University. Take a look at that. You see a lot of Harris Walz supporters gearing up. They're watching the results. This one there at West Palm Beach in Florida. You also see a lot of MAGA, red, Make America Great Again hats as well. In the meantime, though, we do have a live event. We want to go up north to Philadelphia. DA there, Larry Krasner, about to brief the media on how the election is going there. So this press conference is going to get underway in any moment here. We'll wait until Krasner starts speaking as well. So things are moving very, very fast. We are in a new hour. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us here. But to that point, these are just really compelling live vantage points in and around some of these election night watch parties there for the Harris Walz ticket and for the Trump-Vance ticket as well. We are getting some new reporting from Fox News Digital about how the Trump team is feeling at the moment. We'll bring that to you in just a moment. And here you see an updated Electoral College tally there. Harris with 35 and Trump with 95 there. Remember, the magic number is 270. So you see there at the election night watch party for the Trump-Vance ticket and the election night watch party for the Harris Walz ticket there on the campus of Fordham University, Howard University outside of Washington. In the meantime here, we are waiting for the district attorney in Philadelphia, Larry Krasner, to begin this kind of highly anticipated press conference there about some of the threats that have been made there in Philly, about some of the voting numbers, about some of the ballot counting in Philadelphia. It looks like he's beginning. Let's listen.
All right. We're good? Are we ready? Okay. All right. Thank you all. I do want to cover one small point, and I want to stress that it's small, but it's time sensitive, so I want to address that first. There is one polling place, 1013 Ellsworth Street, that is going to be kept open late. It will be kept open, as I understand it, from very recent information from election court until 8:23 p.m. I believe that means that if you're in line at 8:23 p.m. at 1013 Ellsworth Street, then of course you'll be able to vote even if there is a line. That polling place was closed for what I understand to be a period of 23 minutes earlier today, and for that reason there has been a very recent extension of that time. So I say that up front just in case There may be people out there who tried to vote earlier during that 23-minute period. They were denied access. We want to make sure they get back over there and are able to exercise their right to vote before that time ends.
DA, was that a result of a bomb threat?
I will be getting into that very shortly, but the short answer is yes. All right, so.
Can you expand on it or just give us details?
I'm about to.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. All right, so the big picture is that we were all very hopeful that the city of Philadelphia would have a very smooth election day, and that very smooth election day would look like other ones that we've had, where there were the usual significant number of insignificant complaints. That is essentially what occurred here, with a couple of small exceptions. One of those exceptions does have to do with bomb threats, and the other exception has to do with an individual who has been detained, and we'll get into that. But the essence of it is this: people have been here all day. They have been out in the community. I have been out in the community all day. We have been making sure that when there was any sort of a concern or a complaint, we dispatched an attorney. We dispatched law enforcement. I want to give a special thanks to the Philadelphia Police Department, to the DA's detectives in this office who have done an exceptional job today of responding to everything that came up. There wasn't that much, but they were great about responding to it. And that, I think, has had a lot to do with how well the day went. The two exceptions that we are going to talk about, and then we'll do a larger summary, but the two exceptions are that there were some bomb threats in Philadelphia. If you've been monitoring what the Federal Bureau of Investigation has said publicly, they have recently stated publicly that this did happen in other locations as well. They stated publicly that there was some attribution to potentially Russian source. They further stated that they were fake bomb threats, and in Philadelphia they were fake bomb threats. All the locations were cleared. As I said before, only one was briefly closed. That was for about 23 minutes, and that one is being extended for another 23 minutes. So let me say it again. Phony bomb threats. No bombs. No one hurt. No boom. None of that happened, okay? That did occur. There is a second event that occurred, which is a little unusual, which is that an individual walked into a polling place. That individual made a threatening comment to the effect of he was going to bomb that place. He was detained. Police are continuing to investigate that case. It has not been referred to us for charging yet. That is a developing story, and obviously when we have more information, we will know about it. But once again, there's no indication that it was any more than words. There's no indication that there was a capacity to carry it out or anything of that sort.
Which location was that?
I will get you that information. We're going to have people who know everything, because I was out in the community making sure that the work that was done by this office and done with our law enforcement partners was done correctly, that people were satisfied with that work, that polling places were aware of how to interface with us so that we could do that work. So they are in the details a little bit more than I am, and frankly, they deserve the credit more than I do for the work that they have been doing all day. Standing behind me are a couple of familiar faces. Shoshana Silverstein, Matt Stigler, who spoke earlier. They're available to follow up on the information that was provided earlier today. We also have Brian Collins. He's going to provide updates on the big picture of what happened today. Vinnie Corrigan is behind me working away, as he was this morning. And also Josh Barnett, a key player with the Election Protection Task Force, is off-site right now, as he has been for most of the day, dealing with other aspects of our work here. So let me start out by asking Mr. Collins to come forward and give you a general summary of what has been going on today, so you can have your more or less day's end update.
Good evening, everybody. I can talk a little bit more in detail about the incident with the individual at the polling location in a moment. Let me start off by saying it's obviously been no secret that this particular election was hotly contested throughout the entire election season. There was a lot of heated rhetoric. Passions were high. Given all of that, we are extremely pleased with what we saw today. The vast majority of what we responded to were situations where we simply had to explain to everybody who was out there what the rules were for what they were allowed to do while campaigning, where they were allowed to stand, what sorts of things they were allowed to do, and we tried to be as proactive as we could be, given the number of people that we had available, to try to send them out to do that kind of community outreach, to talk to people and let them know what's going on, what the rules were, so that people could continue to express their opinions about who they wanted to vote for, and people who wanted to vote were able to do so safely and without any disturbance to their ability.
All right, so you've been listening there to Philadelphia officials led by DA Larry Krasner updating us on some of these incidents that took place in and around Philadelphia, some of these bomb threat hoaxes and the like there. And so just an update out of the city of brotherly love. All right, I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us. We have a lot of race calls to get to right now, including and especially at the presidential level here. Let's just start because so many race calls have been made this hour already. We're still very fresh in the hour. Let's go through them right now. All right, we do have race calls for the president. This now in South Carolina, Trump beating Harris there. He gets 9 electoral votes in the Palmetto State. If we can keep going as well, Trump with Florida, take a look at that. 30 electoral votes in the Republican column there. Trump winning Florida yet again like he did in 2020 over Harris with around 87% of estimated votes. Kind of the AP calling this for Trump. Trump will win Florida there as well. In the meantime, though, we do have a race call on the eastern seaboard, Massachusetts going for Kamala Harris. Harris getting Massachusetts's 11 electoral votes. Moving back down south to Mississippi, this going for Donald Trump, former President Trump, getting Mississippi's 6 electoral votes there in Mississippi. So like I said, a lot of these race calls coming in just at the top of this hour here. No surprises, no shockers there. This was to be expected. Austin Westfall tracking it with me as usual here. A lot of race calls at this hour, Austin.
A lot of race calls. We started out the night with a big gray map. Now we're starting to see a little more blue, a little more red, starting to be shaded in here. Let's take a look at what all these states are looking like. So Florida, deep red, being called in Trump's favor. Now, you're going to see some lighter shades of red. Georgia, that's one of those key battlegrounds that we're watching. That means that it's leaning in Trump's favor. Let's pull up. So right now, Trump actually has a 14-point lead over Harris, and that's with 36% of the votes counted. So with just over a third of the votes counted so far, Trump maintains a 14% lead in one of the key battleground states. Let's check out another key battleground state. This is North Carolina, the Tar Heel state, where Harris is above right now. Harris has an 8-point lead over Donald Trump. We do know that those are the battlegrounds that we're tracking. We're Pennsylvania, and yeah, let's focus in on some of these other ones. So we're getting preliminary, very preliminary results, I will say. Pennsylvania, some consider this to be the biggest prize out of them all. The easiest path to victory for both Trump and Harris is through Pennsylvania. Only 5% of those votes have been tallied so far. There's still a lot to go. The early returns are favoring the Democrats. Harris has a 50-point lead up on Trump right now. Some say that there's something called the blue mirage. Sometimes we see that early votes can be tabulated first. Sometimes those can favor Democrats. They call that the blue mirage in some cases. There's some states where a red mirage could be possible as well. So it's possible that that's what we're seeing in these very early minutes in Pennsylvania. And while you have me here, Andrew, let's also take a look at Michigan. That's one of these other battlegrounds. Only 2%. Can only stress, this is very preliminary data, but so far, Harris with just about almost a 50-point lead over Trump right now. So are there any bellwethers from any of this data, Andrew? Of course not. It's way too early. We're going to be waiting for quite some time as they tabulate results in some of those bigger counties. Specifically, we're going to be watching the Detroit area. That's where so many of those votes come from in Michigan. In Pennsylvania, we're looking at Philadelphia and some of those suburbs around Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh. There's still a lot to learn tonight.
That's right. And it is, to your point, very early still. Blue and red mirages can be operative at the moment here, but we are in for a long night. Austin, stay with me here. We do want to just get in some more of these race calls at the presidential level here. I want to put this up. We also have battleground states, too. To your point, you just put some of those up. I believe we're getting some race calls in for Harris and Trump there in states like Oklahoma and states like Maryland. Oklahoma going for Republicans in the Trump column. Maryland going for Democrats there for Harris in the blue column as well. But these are the numbers that we have. I want to put that up again. Oklahoma there, you can see Trump getting this into his electoral college tally, those 7 electoral votes. Harris getting Maryland there in her electoral college tally, 10 electoral votes for Harris. And to Austin Westfall's point, a lot of results coming in there in Georgia, also in Pennsylvania, and in Michigan. All right, we do have a race call in Tennessee here. 11 electoral votes going to the Trump column there for Republicans there in Tennessee. In the meantime, speaking of Tennessee, Austin, we do want to bring into the conversation more of our experts, analysis, and reporters who cover this election day in and day out, or at least have. That's including the New York Post's Cameron Arcand. He joins me. Cameron, good to see you here. So give us a sense. Yes, we've gotten a lot of race calls in for states that aren't necessarily surprises, but we have gotten some of these results in from some of these battleground states. There's a lot of dichotomies at play right now when you look at the vote share with Trump and the vote share with Harris. Rural versus urban and suburban pockets. Also, some of these key demographics as well, the elderly and the youth, men and women, but also between early voting and same-day voting here. Cameron, what are you looking at right now?
I'm looking at the difference between the Sun Belt and the northern states right now and the dynamic between those two, particularly because we saw a lot of people move to states like Florida, like Georgia over the past several years in the post-COVID era, and really trying to figure out how those people are going to vote compared to 2020, where they may not have even lived in these states at this point yet. So obviously it's still early. I've seen exit polling showing that issues like border and the economy are at the top of the list, and keeping an eye on which ways those independents are going to break out.
So Cameron, I got to ask you, Andrew and I were just chatting about the concept of mirages in the early minutes and hours of these races. We're seeing some of these lightly shaded battleground states right now, and I'm going to point specifically to Michigan and Pennsylvania, which have light blue, but very early results so far in those states. What's a blue mirage? What's a red mirage? What do we need to know about mirages on Election Day?
So I'll use the example of here in Arizona. We're going to see a drop of ballots that came in early, people, some of those election day votes, and a good chunk of those as well. So I think we really got to keep an eye on those ballots and seeing how that evolves throughout the night. Are we going to see more mail-ins that tend to favor Democrats? Or are we going to see a situation where it kind of flips slowly over time? As these races tighten, it really boils down to the different ways these people decide to vote. And so we'll see a different impact in different states and in terms of how that plays out. But I think the key here is for people to be patient. And if you see a close margin, you see that margin flip, keep an eye on terms of what those ballots are coming in those ballot drops.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Cameron. Almost like the object in the mirror isn't as close as it would appear, or is as close as it would appear here. So, yes, I think a lot of people are kind of just keeping their powder dry on that one, knowing that some of these results you got to take with a grain of salt right now because they come in piecemeal. But we do have our electoral college tally, if we can just bring that up here. I was told by my executive producer that in 2020, at this very same point in the night, the tally was identical to then and now, 2020 to 2024. At this point in the night, you see it there in the lower left-hand portion of your screen. 95 for Trump, 35 for Harris. It is really, really early so far. We have vantage points as well, though, inside of the Trump election night watch party there in West Palm Beach. We also have vantage points outside on the campus of Howard University in the nation's capital at the Harris Walls ticket. So wanted to get all this in. I think that was a kind of a good pausing moment. Let's take a quick commercial break, you guys. Austin Westfall, Cameron Arcand, they'll join me on the back end here. We'll see.
News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. The score right now is 95-35. Donald Trump winning Tennessee, Missouri, South Carolina, Florida, Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Alabama. Kamala Harris is projected to win Massachusetts, Maryland, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. Now, Trump still holds a lead in Georgia with 35% of the vote counted, 56-43%. Harris holds a lead in North Carolina with 7% of the votes counted, 56-43%. And in New Hampshire, Harris leads with 14% of the votes counted, 56-43%. In the critical swing state of Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris holds a lead right now. Only 3% of the votes are counted. This is early, but the lead is 71-28%. And in Michigan, with 2% of the votes counted, Harris holds a 76-22% lead. Now, Trump did have an early lead in Ohio, but now with 31% of those votes counted, Harris holds the lead, 53-46%. And Trump holds an early lead in Texas with 16% of the votes counted, 50-48%. And now we take a look at how the markets are reacting to these election results rolling in. Asian equities are in a good mood as they track U.S. futures. Equity indexes around Asia are in the green. Oil prices are lower as traders are weighing the election impact. And let's take a look at those futures. Futures are in the green across the board. S&P up 0.6%. NASDAQ up 0.3%. Dow futures up 0.7%. We're going to keep watching all of this for you tonight. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us on this historic election night here in the United States. Happy election night to all of you. Let's get into more of these storylines throughout the course of the evening. Going to be joined by my colleague here in the Live Now newsroom, Austin Westfall, and New York Post reporter Cameron Arcand with the latest here as well. Cameron, we were discussing some of these battleground states. We're getting results in from some of them here. But let's talk about the campaigns themselves, the Trump campaign specifically here. I know you have sources within the campaign. How are they feeling tonight? We have a live picture inside their election night watch party. We have some reporting as well from Fox News Digital. Who have you spoken to there tonight?
There is definitely a sense of cautious optimism from the Trump campaign when it comes to the outcome tonight. I think there is definitely still a push to make sure that these votes get counted, because keep in mind, they had a massive early voting push, and you saw that in a lot of states. This big advantage for Republicans here in Arizona for these early ballot returns. But the matter of it is they have to make sure that that slice of vote that they have on election day didn't just transfer to early voting. They need to make sure they're getting those election day people out, as well as your low propensity voters, and maybe those people who have changed their mind from 2020 and 2022 and now want to back the former president. So that's kind of what they're keeping an eye on, keeping tally on who are these voters that we maybe did not see come to the polls for Trump in prior elections.
So, Cameron, I got to ask you. Oh, and go ahead.
Yeah, so we just have some of the more reporting that Cameron was alluding to. This from Fox News Digital's Brooke Singman. She's talking to Trump campaign officials. They're telling her early signs are the night could be shaping up like we hoped, on track for a great night. They say the direction indicated by early voting is continuing, and people who voted early did not cannibalize election day voting. Based on network exit polling, Trump campaign officials saying Trump is doing better with female voters than Harris is doing with male voters. Also, they say GOP turnout in Philadelphia is high, where Trump was successful in 2016 and 2020, like South Philly and Northeast Philly. Also, they say rural turnout for Republicans is, quote unquote, through the roof. They say exit polling has a very, quote, anti-incumbent mood here. So this is to be expected, from some of these campaign officials, Austin, going into election night. They want to project confidence here. That seems like what you're getting from some of these quotes obtained by Fox News Digital on the Trump side.
That's right. And if we can, I want to bring Cameron back in because I want to ask him a little bit about his state. We've been talking all day about the 7 battleground states. I said earlier today the easiest path to victory for Harris would be the blue wall: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, 1 in Nebraska. The easiest for Trump would be North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. That's the path of least resistance for both candidates. Notice I didn't mention your state, Cameron. How does Arizona play into this? What if the path of least resistance is not the way it plays out with these states? How does Arizona fit into the equation?
Well, Arizona fits into this equation where we backed Trump in 2016, but backed Biden in 2020. I'm going to read you a text that I got earlier today from the GOP chairwoman. She says she feels great. She says they feel like they were unified and voted early and on the big day. She told me this weekend on a phone call that they did not cannibalize those votes from Election Day to early voting. And how does this play a role into this? We also have in Arizona a unique situation with independent voters who make up about 1/3 of our registered voters in the state. We're also looking at those disaffected, more moderate Republicans and seeing how they're voting. I want to point this stat out. Nikki Haley, before she dropped out of the primary, received over 100,000 votes in opposition to Donald Trump. The Harris campaign with their whole Republicans for Harris coalition, whether or not that's going to work or not, is banking on those votes. I'm in regular contact with the Harris campaign. This is part of their strategy, seeing if they can close the gap with those Haley voters in getting them to vote for Kamala Harris.
All right, Cameron Arcan there with the New York Post. Cameron, thanks so much. Have a good election night. Great reporting this cycle, as always. And in the meantime here, we do want to bring you out to some of these live events that we have at the moment here. Austin and I and Cameron were talking about Arizona specifically, major issues put to Arizona voters on the ballot, like immigration, like abortion. Same with Florida, though. We are getting some of these reactions from some of the candidates there in Florida, including, remember, that key Senate race between Republican incumbent Rick Scott and his Democratic challenger, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. We have Mucarsel-Powell. Okay, it looks like this just wrapped up here. So we're a little off on our timing at the moment there. But Debbie Mucarsel-Powell most likely conceding the race to Scott there. Let's take this here. You see that Scott was declared and projected the winner of the Florida Senate race, 56%, with Mucarsel-Powell's 43%. So this is going to happen here on Live Now all throughout the course of the evening. We're going to try to get to some of these campaign speeches, election night watch parties, but also victory speeches and concession speeches as well. In the meantime here, let's get another quick commercial break. Almost at the bottom of the hour. There is so much more where that came from on this election night. We'll see you. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We are at the bottom of the hour here on this election night, 6:30 Mountain Time, 8:30 there on the East Coast, as we continue to track some of these results and bring you these live events, live, raw, and unfiltered here. We do have this as well. This is a live vantage point inside of Senator Rick Scott's election night watch party. We're expecting Scott very, very soon here to give his victory speech. We just heard from his Democratic opponent, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. She conceded the race to Rick Scott there, and this is the breakdown we have in the results according to the Associated Press right now. You can see there the race was called about an hour ago, and so Republicans breathing somewhat of a sigh of relief there in the Sunshine State. We also know Trump has been projected to be the winner of Florida as well, besting Harris. So Florida looking very, very solid for Republicans, as it has in the last cycle in 2020 as well. In the meantime here, we do have more and more experts, reporters, analysts joining us on the stream, including and especially Anna Giartelli at the Washington Examiner. She joins me, and Austin Westfall here at Live. Anna, good to see you here. We got a lot of live events to contend with, but let's focus our efforts on the Harris campaign right now. This is their election night watch party on the campus of Howard University. And Anna, I know you have some sources in the Harris campaign. How are they feeling tonight?
They're feeling very good. Certainly a lot of joy. I think that would fit with the campaign theme. But the Harris campaign, I was with them last night in Atlanta for a concert, parties, lot of high expectations. They're really confident that this is going to be their time, that their candidate has stuck on message. Certainly she has, possibly to a fault, according to Republicans, because she has, jumped on positions, gone back and forth. And really, on a number of issues, particularly immigration, which is what I cover every day, we haven't heard Harris's border plans. And so that's to Democrats' advantage at this point. They just need someone to run against Trump, pretty much stay quiet, not make problems, and defeat him. And they think that's going to happen tonight.
Yeah, and I wanted to just bring up a race call that we're getting. Speaking of Harris here, let's go to the Garden State at the moment. We bring you all these in real time, as you know. The Associated Press calling the race for Harris. She beats Donald Trump there in New Jersey. Also, Westfall, Harris winning New Jersey.
Harris winning New Jersey, and if you'll come out to me, let's show the electoral map. We are seeing more and more blue filling in. A lot of these smaller states are now dark blue. That means we're seeing finally that they're being called. No surprises there so far. We're still hearing for more results from battleground states like Michigan and Pennsylvania, preliminary results coming in from those states. But nonetheless, Andrew, that race call, not a surprise.
All right, and Anna, let's get back to some of the Harris campaign, I guess, the vibes within headquarters there on the campus of Howard University here. What does Harris need to do if she has the momentum to maintain that momentum? And what have they done in the last 4 or 5 days to shore up any support here?
Yeah, what the Harris campaign has done is it's very similar to Trump's, but they had the closing message at the Ellipse on Tuesday.
To cut you off, Anna. Sorry to cut you off here. We do have Rick Scott at his election night watch party. We'll get to that question and answer in just a moment here. Let's listen.
Well, Florida, we did it. And for once, we did it before midnight. I want to thank God. I want to thank my beautiful wife who put up with me. My wonderful daughters, Allison and Jordan. Oh, Allison and Jordan. And their husbands, Pierre and Shane. And my perfect grandsons. And I want to thank my mom, who couldn't be here. So, and guess what? We won Miami-Dade. So I think we won every constitutional officer down there. We have a new sheriff, Rosie. It's unbelievable what happened. Together, this is a team event. Together, we get to celebrate a great victory tonight. There's a lot of people to thank. There's a lot of people that knocked on doors, made phone calls, did text. We had a lot of people just busted their butts. And everyone is So we had a great campaign team led by Jackie Zeckman. We have a great office team. We've got 10 offices led by Craig Carbone. Now, let's do something fun. Keep your hands up if I ask you. Raise your hand if you worked in the governor's office. Raise your hand if you were appointed by me when I was governor, or you have a family or friend that was. How about you worked in my Senate office? Keep your hands up. Or you worked at the National Republican Senatorial Committee when I was a chair. Or you worked at the RNC in my last election. Or you volunteered or you donated. Almost everybody is part of that. This is a team win. We won, they lost. Every person in this room has a dream. My dream is that every child, I don't care the color of their skin, their religion, where they were born, has a chance to live the dream of this country. If that's true, it's a hell of a country. And that's what we're going to do. But our work is not done. Next week, we have another election. Senate Republican leader. So 2 years ago, I challenged Mitch McConnell because I know there has to be a change. We have a great Republican Party all across this country. We need a Republican Party in D.C. We need a Republican Party to start solving the problems of this country, and we have a significant number of problems. Florida is the center of the Republican Party of this country. Washington could learn a hell of a lot from what we've done right here in this great state. We are the best melting pot in the world. Los votantes hispanos son republicanos hoy. Hoy enviamos un fuerte mensaje al mundo. Florida is roja. Y no hay lugar para el socialismo en los Estados Unidos, especialmente la Florida.
Okay, so as Senator Rick Scott there accepts victory in Spanish there in the Sunshine State, wanted to let you listen into some of his remarks there alongside his family as well. We also have the results in the lower right-hand portion of your screen coming back out here. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us. So that's what we're going to do all throughout the course of the evening. It really is still early yet here. I want to bring into the conversation yet again Austin Westfall and Anna Giratelli there at the Washington Examiner. Before we do that, we do have some race calls that we want to make as well. We just brought you that New Jersey going for Vice President Kamala Harris. Remember, there's a Senate race there we're watching. Let's take this. All right, so Congressman, the Democrat Andy Kim beating Republican Curtis Bashaw there in New Jersey. And this race just called by the Associated Press with around 28% of estimated votes counted. Remember, this is Senator Bob Menendez's seat that he resigned from this summer after being found guilty of 16 felony corruption counts, and he was convicted of that. He gets sentenced on those convictions come January here. Andy Kim will replace Bob Menendez there in the Garden State for this Senate seat. Democrats keeping the seat there in New Jersey. But we also have some race calls coming in on the presidential level as well. For Vice President Kamala Harris, we brought you Delaware for her. We brought you Maryland for her. We brought you New Jersey for her. Take a look at this there in the Garden State. Harris beating Trump in New Jersey. New Jersey solidly blue, solidly Democratic. I believe, okay, also we do have a race call. Let's go to Illinois right now. 19 electoral votes there in Illinois going to Kamala Harris here. She bested Trump there, 56 to Trump's 43, with 9% of estimated votes counted there. So you see the tally in the lower left hand of your screen there. That's the Electoral College. Remember, the magic number is 270. Harris has 71 right now. Trump with 101 here, bringing Anna and Austin back in here. Austin, we'll start with you. So we got an updated Electoral College tally. Still no surprises there? That was to be expected, right?
Yeah, no surprises so far. Let's take a look at our bar. It's been filling in 71, as you mentioned, to 101 with Trump. We're starting to see, though, and this gives us a little bit more context, the lighter shades are some of the more interesting ones, specifically in the battlegrounds of Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. Let's very briefly just look at what little information we have out of Michigan. So with 7% of the vote in so far, we do see Harris with a 14% advantage in Michigan. Pennsylvania, only 12% of the votes have been tallied so far. And right now, Harris has a sizable lead. Looks like she's got a 40-point lead right now. That very well could be one of those blue mirage situations that we were just discussing very early on in the tabulation cycle. North Carolina, let's go to the Tar Heel state here. Let's see what they're working with. They have a fifth of the votes in, 20% of the votes in North Carolina. And Trump right now has about an 8-point lead over Harris with a fifth of the votes tallied. Finally, let's hit Georgia. And it looks like we have Trump up with an 11-point advantage. That's with over half of the votes tallied. So Trump with an 11-point lead in a battleground state. We don't know exactly which ballots were being tabulated in that. We, again, don't know if this is a red mirage, if you will. We will be waiting to see more results as they come in. There you see on your screen right there, Georgia, 52% of this state has been called. Georgia was so important. It actually had a record number of early voters. It was so robust that a top official told the Associated Press that the big day could look like a ghost town at the polls. Biden became the first Democrat to take that state since Bill Clinton in 1992. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, guys.
And Anna, of course, you've spent so much time in Georgia this cycle. Let's talk about it. You saw the vote spread there between Trump and Harris, a little over half of estimated votes counted there in the Peach State. I want to focus our efforts on Harris, too, because we've been showing a lot of the Trump election night watch party. This is the Harris night watch party right now. It looks to be quite raucous there. A lot of performances at the moment on the campus of Howard University here. So if you could, Georgia first, and then what are we seeing right now?
In Georgia, you know, I was at a polling site today, and Georgia has 159 counties. 2 of them could be flipped. And I was in one that's leaning blue. And I spoke, actually, I kept finding voters who were saying, we're going to vote for Trump, even though, you know, we may be Democrats, we may be Black. That's the way that we're going to vote this cycle. And people were concerned about the economy. I mean, we've seen it over and over again in the polls being conducted since the caucuses and primaries. It's the #1 issue, followed by, you know, threat to democracy, the border, immigration, those types of things. But, you know, tonight, I think the Harris campaign is taking an early victory lap. It seems to believe it's going to win. Certainly, it looked like it last night when I was with Harris in Atlanta, or I should say the Harris campaign at a party in Atlanta with 2 Chainz. And that's what we're seeing on Howard campus. People are excited. But, you know, the election is just getting started, as you and I know.
So, Anna, I wanted to also ask you, because it seemed like, and this was evident yesterday, moving from Georgia to Pennsylvania, Harris was in Pennsylvania all day yesterday for stops before election night. And she was visiting Puerto Rican businesses. It seemed like the Harris campaign went all in on the response to that joke that was made at a Trump rally at Madison Square Garden in New York now about a week and a half ago here. Was that kind of strategic on the Harris's part, or, you know, a waste of time, money, and effort here? How do you see that? How is the Harris campaign kind of spinning that to their advantage here. It seems like they think there could be some benefit to it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Pennsylvania, out of the 7 battleground states, has the most electoral votes up for grabs. And so what we've seen is the candidates jumping around between these 7 states, sometimes multiple per day. But Harris is really focused on Pennsylvania in the end. And so, with the Puerto Rican thing, Puerto Rico, I should say, Pennsylvania's makeup of a Puerto Rican isn't high compared to other states like New York and Florida. But it's something that they've realized we can really get a lot of life out of this incendiary remark that was made at the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden a couple weeks ago. And you're right, Andrew. They've continued to hit on it again and again and again, and play the racism card. And will it work or not? It's going to be interesting to see the exit polls among Hispanic and Latino voters, even if you get really into the weeds and look at Puerto Ricans. And see, did that move the needle at all? I think people's minds were already made up before that comment was made.
Anna, we were speaking earlier about the Senate and the balance of power in the Senate. We saw the race being called for Rick Scott in Florida. He's somebody that's thrown his name into consideration to become the leader of the Senate. Can you walk us through how that process works?
Yeah, so once Congress does get back this month, there's going to be a vote and move forward similarly with the House Speaker, move forward on who's going to be the best candidate for Republicans, and then as well as Democrats. But depending on who takes control tonight, if we know tonight, will determine, if it's going to be a House and Senate controlled by one party, by both, if the White House is going to be controlled by a separate party. But I think Rick Scott is throwing his hat in, and very interestingly, Florida is a state of immigrants. Even with the situation at the southern border, we've seen millions of people released into the country and choosing to go to Florida, specifically South Florida, Miami-Dade area. And so Rick Scott has a firsthand understanding of, not only how to help immigrants in his state, but this population that's technically illegal in the country, and what that looks like. So I think he's got an interesting perspective.
Yeah, interesting in his very interesting in his very same election night victory speech, he mentioned the Republican Senate leader race as well, that he has thrown his hat into the ring here. Anna, thank you so much for being with us. Also, we do have some of these candidates stepping up to the podium at their election night watch parties as well, including Mike Braun, who's leaving the Senate. He's going to the governor's mansion there in Indianapolis. Let's listen.
I think it was up at the Moontown Brewery that we celebrated. And the journey that I've been on over the last 7 years, most people would think you'd been crazy to do it in the first place. Dear, what do you think about that?
No, it's good.
Okay. All I can tell you is 7 years ago in August, when I declared to run for the U.S. Senate, there weren't many believers. And even folks close to you wondered, did you really have a game plan? Well, my game plan started very simply when I got to be the luckiest man alive to marry this lady here. Now you do all these fancy commercials and they don't even talk about you, they talk about my wife. We were lucky, I think, going way back when we made the decision, unlike most did then, to move back to our hometown. And when we did that, that set the stage for everything else that followed. Most people didn't think that made sense either. But had we not done that, I'm almost certain we wouldn't be here this evening. Yeah. when you marry someone that says the priority is to have my own business and raise a family, how in the hell could you argue with that? So we came back and did just that. We lived the American dream. Blessed with 4 kids, 3 of them running the business I ran for 37 years, and a family that's always been behind me and Maureen in anything that we did. That truly is what life is about. And so often you get caught in the groove where you don't want to get out of it, because that's success measured in one way. To me, once you do it, I think you need to look beyond that. And that's what I decided to do 7 years ago. So that was a tricky navigation when you didn't really have any real experience at it. As I've always said, politics and government are a lot easier than running a business. Any of you that own businesses, yeah. Hell, in government, you just got to be smart enough to not spend more than you take in. In business, you're signing the note. Your livelihood is on the line. And by the way, there are dozens of competitors in a real market that want to take a bite out of your flank. That is difficult. Now, the difference is when you jump into the political arena, business is over a span of time. 2 hard deadlines in politics, May and November. And then you need to take all the skills that you've learned in the real world, to where you've been understated, underestimated, and you've overperformed, and then it's like shooting ducks on a pond. Because it's so assumed that you got to come from that pathway. I never did assume that. When you go to the U.S. Senate and you get a crew mostly of Hoosiers that come out there with you, you end up being the most successful freshman Senate office. That's something to be proud of. And yeah. And then in issues that really count, like healthcare, education, agriculture, you get more done than the senators out there you got to wheel out of there after 3 decades. Do you think I believe in term limits? Yes, I do. Everybody campaigns on it, and then they have amnesia once they get there. And let's throw in a balanced budget amendment to boot. As hard as it was to get there, it begs the question, why would you give it up? Wasn't going to do it more than 2 terms anyway. And when I saw the fork in the road to burn another 6 years there, when the numbers, the fact that they're borrowing now $1 trillion every 6 months, and it was annually just 6 years ago, the interest on the debt's as much as what we spend on defense. We need to shock that place into reality. And when you're an entrepreneur by trade, you generally, if you survive, know how to pick the best fork in the road. And there are many of them. And to me, if it was coming back to lead our state, where you can set the agenda, where you're going to get along with the legislature, imagine what you can do with that.
All right, you've been listening there to Indiana Governor-elect Mike Braun, former Republican Senator Mike Braun, Republican Congressman Jim Banks taking his seat there in the Senate. So we got some race calls in there in Indiana. I'm Andrew Kraft. We are fastly approaching a new hour. You know what that means. Polls will be closed in even more states, though, but we do want to give you a lay of the land. Remember, we're tracking, and we have vantage points inside the Harris-Walz watch party. That's live. Also at the Trump-Vance watch party. That's live there in West Palm Beach, Florida here. But let's talk about some of these gubernatorial races as well. We are getting a race call in a pretty big one, the Tar Heel State, Austin Westfall. Joining me in the Live Now newsroom to break it down here. What's going on in North Carolina between Mark Robinson and Josh Stein?
All right, so this was not one that we expected to be a red state gubernatorial-wise, because there has been so much controversy surrounding the GOP candidate there, Mark Robinson. There was that bombshell report that discussed some of his alleged online postings from over a decade ago on an adult web forum. He already had an uphill battle before that scandal came out. Once the scandal came out, he stopped being invited to Trump events when he was in that state. Mark Robinson's campaign basically floundered at that point. North Carolina, let's pull up some of these results and let's zoom in so that we can see how this thing played out. Josh Stein, he's the AG in the state. He will be the next governor. He's going to be succeeding Governor Roy Cooper, who was term limited. So Josh Stein going to be moving into the governor's mansion there. He won by a margin of about 8 points. North Carolina, that's a fascinating one. I want to keep it moving here because on this map too, Andrew, again, North Carolina, we kind of expected that to fall the way that it fell. New Hampshire, that's something I want to focus in on. That's the only real toss-up gubernatorial race that we were following. 32% of the votes counted so far, and Kelly Ayotte, the Republican, so far has exactly a 2-point lead over Joyce Craig. Looks like there's still a lot of ballots to be counted in that competitive gubernatorial race. We'll keep you posted. I think we have some props to get to.
Yeah, that's right. So we have now a resolution to the North Carolina gubernatorial contest. It got so much attention with those bombshell reports about some of Mark Robinson's alleged online behavior. This is the election night watch party for Robinson's supporters here, Austin. So if we see any campaign staffers or Robinson himself take to the podium there, we'll bring this live as well. So that's a live vantage point we have coming to us from North Carolina. We also have a live vantage point coming to us from New Jersey. We're expecting Senator-elect Andy Kim, the Democrat, to address his crowd of supporters here. But to your point, Austin, we got to get in some of these race calls in on these ballot proposals and ballot questions put to voters in several states on a lot of different issues, including and especially, though, in Florida. Remember, the issues of abortion and marijuana were put to voters there in the Sunshine State, and we have some calls to make on that. I want to put this up here. This is Florida Amendment 3, Austin, to legalize marijuana in the state. 91% of estimated votes counted, and this fails. Austin, you see there.
You know, and this is fascinating, Andrew. Every time a statewide measure relating to abortion has been put to the states, every single time, and it looks like our graphic is having some trouble there. We will say that we're not seeing exactly what we believe is happening there with that race. But if this measure were indeed to fail, we'd be talking about the first statewide abortion measure that would be shut down, and that would be notable. Every single time that this thing has been put to a state, the pro-abortion side has won out. Of course, the overturn of Roe is what returned the power of these types of decisions to each individual state. We will, of course, work to get that graphic updated. I think we had some other propositions to get to as well, Andrew.
Yes, Austin, of course, we're tracking Florida Amendment 4. Like you said, that's the abortion referendum there. But both, according to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, both of these ballot questions have failed there in the state of Florida. Austin, you noted the higher than usual threshold that was needed for these to pass here. Well, our colleague Christina Evans, she's tracking some of the reaction to the failure of some of these proposals on social media. Christina, what are they saying?
Absolutely, Andrew. You pointed it out. Yes, the Florida Governor, Ron DeSantis, was one of the first people to come out and say that both of these amendments had failed when we're talking about marijuana and abortion as well. Taking a look here inside of our social studio, I want to pull up for you some of the tweets that we have been monitoring right now. Here's a look at that tweet from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He says, with the polls now closed in Florida, Amendment 3 has failed. Amendment 4 has failed as well. Again, one of the first people that we saw call this. But again, an additional reaction is coming in from the state. Take a look at this tweet there from Florida Representative DeSantis. He says spent tens of millions of taxpayer money against abortion rights and legalizing marijuana. This criminal and abuse of state dollars must be investigated by the Department of Justice immediately. So, of course, that is, again, Representative Maxwell Alejandro Frost there in the state, upset at the way that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis went about going on a blitz to make sure that these amendments did not pass in the days before the election. Here's also some results as well that we're getting from an NFL legend here, Tony Dungy. The polls are now closed in Florida, and Amendment 3 and Amendment 4 both failed to pass. Thank you to all the Florida residents who helped to protect the lives of the unborn, and we want to help people to realize that those expectant mothers who need help will still be able to get it. So just some of the reaction that we're now seeing come in on social media in response to these amendments failing. Again, with the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, one of the first people to speak out on social about this amendment failing. Andrew.
All right, Christina, thanks so much. Those were definitely key to watch there in Florida. We'll check in very, very soon. We are in a new hour. It's a little past 7 o'clock here Mountain Time, 9 o'clock there on the East Coast. Let's go to New Jersey right now. Congressman, the Democrat Andy Kim, giving a victory speech there in New Jersey, winning his Senate race. Let's watch.
I know that many of you took risks to join this campaign. You had people doubt your choice to join this campaign. You worked long hours and struggled and stressed about the challenges we confronted. I hope you take pride in this moment. Whoever says young people don't care about politics haven't met the young people that are the engine powering campaigns all over this nation. And to our supporters, look what we've accomplished. Look what we've been able to do. By most standards of what is possible, this moment right now should not be occurring. A year ago, 6 years ago, few believed we could show that what we could accomplish. That we showed that politics isn't some exclusive club just for the well-off and the well-connected. Right. That we built something that epitomizes the grassroots. I hope this experience has brought you closer to understanding the essence of our democracy, that you have a deeper understanding of what it means to be a citizen of this great country, and that you feel empowered by that. You've heard me say this line a lot, and I'll say it again tonight, that I believe that the opposite of democracy is apathy. And by extension, I hope that you've seen our campaign as a means of being the opposite of that helplessness. Yes. Yes. I hope this moment is every bit as meaningful for you as it is for me. I want to say thank you to my family. My parents and my sister are here, who gave me the grounding in service and purpose that powers me every day. To my wife, Cammie. Cammie, look what we've accomplished. Look what we've done. For them, right? Yep. I'm just so proud of our family and what we've been able to do, our humble family, be able to take this kind of actions. To my boys. I'm proud of the two of you. You know, I know that this has been tough. I know it hasn't been easy. And I know there have been moments where I haven't always been there for you in the way that I wished I was as a father. But I hope you're proud of me. And I hope that when you learn about this moment in America, that you come to understand why I did what I did and why I fight for you. That's what this is about. I chose this hotel for a particular reason. 37 years ago, when I was 5 years old, my family and I lived out of this hotel for several weeks when we first moved to New Jersey. My first nights in this state were right here in this hotel. My dad had just accepted a job, his very first job ever, working at a lab in Camden to do cancer research. And we were looking for a home for us to rent. My very first nights, as I said, were here, and some of the strongest memories I have ever had in my life, early moments of my life, were here. I remember staying here. I remember there was a restaurant here. I think it was called Circles. I can't remember, but I just remember feeling like the food was amazing. I was like, people in New Jersey live good here. Quality of the food, high class. I felt like a prince. And I just have to say, I wanted to be here tonight in this hotel. I wanted to pay tribute to my parents, to my family, to the state, for giving a kid like me a chance to be able to dream, for giving me the tools through public education and a kind community. Yeah. It wasn't easy initially. We had no family to lean on here, no friends to help us get started, but New Jersey welcomed us. I wanted to return here tonight to give perspective. For my parents, this hotel was an important step in achieving the American dream and in ultimately giving back to this state. My parents taught me something I'll never forget. They taught me to love America. I revere this country. I am in awe of America. When I worked at the White House, I've shared this story before, when I worked at the White House, I had a pair of black, pristine leather shoes that I would only wear whenever I was asked to go into the Oval Office. I wanted to treat that room different. I wanted to remind myself that I'm part of something bigger than all of us. And it's because of my reverence for this nation that it also pains me to our core to see the struggles that we are going through. That we aren't just having policy debates and fights, but instead the very foundation of our democracy is rendered fragile. People tell me they simply didn't trust their public servants. They simply didn't trust that the politics was working for them. That they didn't think that the big challenges we face in our family and as a state are solvable because they thought nobody was looking out for them. While we know what happened in our race, I certainly recognize right now that we are at a moment of profound anxiety about what comes next for our country. Yep. That the coming minutes and hours and days could very well be excruciating. But regardless of what happens next, we need to recognize that we face significant challenge regardless of the outcome. That the divisions we face are deep to the bone. They will not be fixed by any single election, and it isn't just about the politics. We live in a time of the greatest amount of inequality in our nation's history, too. In Salem, I visited a public housing complex and talked to a mother who showed me the black mold growing on her home, on the walls where her kids live. She told me about her pleas for help that did not go answered. I heard from a young man who felt so pessimistic about his life. He said to me that he didn't think that he could ever afford to buy a home in this state because of the high costs as well as the high student loan burden that he was facing. Regardless of what the final results are from this election, our nation is on an unsustainable trajectory. But let there be no doubt that this is a...
All right, so you've been listening to now New Jersey's new Democratic Senator-elect Andy Kim there giving his victory speech, besting his Republican rival Curtis Bashaw there. This is, remember, Bob Menendez's seat that he vacated after resigning his Senate seat there. All right, I'm Andrew Kraft. We are in a new hour. We want to get in more of these presidential race calls, especially here. And we have a lot of them to make now that we are 10 minutes removed from this new hour. And let's take them here. So going now there to Wyoming. Wyoming's 3 electoral votes. Going to Donald Trump there, you can see with only around 2% of estimated votes counted, Trump besting Harris there right now, at least. There 3-1. So wanted to make sure we got that in. All right, Louisiana here, 8 electoral votes. Louisiana being called for former President Donald Trump over Vice President Harris. Trump getting 8 electoral votes out of Louisiana. Louisiana staying in the red column here. Also, we do have more of these election results coming into the South Dakota here. 3 electoral votes going to Donald Trump here. This race just being called within the last couple of minutes here. We also have more, another Dakota here. We have a North Dakota race called there. So both Dakotas going into the Republican column for Donald Trump there. 3 electoral votes for Trump in North Dakota. Harris, of course, coming up short in this predominantly red state there in North Dakota. So moving on to Nebraska. Okay, Nebraska District 1. Nebraska is somewhat of an interesting, peculiar state in the way they count their electoral votes. It's not a winner-take-all state there. Harris up on Trump with around 31% of estimated votes counted, 57-42 there. And Austin Westfall joining me here in the Live Now newsroom as well, commenting, responding to some of these race calls and results coming in. We have Nebraska District 2. This is Omaha. That's that congressional district here. 1 electoral vote there is up for grabs. And Harris over Trump 61-38 there with 46% of estimated votes counted. Also Nebraska District 3, Trump over Harris. This is like the rest of Nebraska, central and western Nebraska here. And you see there 10% of estimated votes counted. Trump up on Harris, almost 2-1 there. So wanted to get in some of these numbers. Now, all of Nebraska has 5 electoral votes. Austin, let's talk about Nebraska here. Why does it all have 5 votes there?
Yeah, it's a little deceptive, Andrew. Basically, what we're talking about here is 2 of the electoral votes out of those 5 go for the entirety of the state's popular vote. That's how they determine 2 of those votes. The other 3 votes are split between the 3 congressional districts in Nebraska. Each one gets 1 electoral vote. The second one specifically is going to be part of Kamala Harris's easiest path to the presidency. If she gets that 1 electoral vote in Nebraska District 2, as well as the blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, that would give her the presidency, as long as all of the 43 other non-battleground states and D.C. fall the way that they expect them to fall. You just gave us a lot of data. Here's what that means for our Electoral College tally. Right now, Harris is at 99, Trump at 177. Here is how the map is filling in. You see a lot of these states that we expected to go red, they're being called as soon as the polls are closing, because the Associated Press knows that these are going to be reliably red. They're going to be dominated, really, by Republican voters. We see Texas going red, Oklahoma, Georgia, and let me just say that none of the battleground states have been called so far. Let's talk about Nebraska, because Nebraska is interesting. It's these little tiny dots here off to the corner. You see Nebraska has District 1, 2, and 3. Maine has a similar dynamic where their electoral votes, 2 of them go to the state at large, and then both of their congressional districts each get 1 congressional vote each. So those 2 states, they operate a little bit differently than the rest of them. Ohio going red, and let's zoom in here, because Ohio's interesting, Andrew. I mean, we've been following elections. Ohio used to be that prototypical swing state. Not anymore. Look at the results. The AP, with just over 50% of the vote tallied, says that Trump's going to take this state with about a 9-point lead. That's just with over 50% of the vote counted. Ohio's interesting, not so much because of the presidency. We expected it to go that way. Let's switch over to our Senate map here, and let's look at how Sherrod Brown and Bernie Moreno's race is going. So this is fascinating, because Moreno does have the edge over the incumbent Democrat Sherrod Brown right now, but you see the difference. There's a lot less room between these 2 candidates than there was between Harris and Trump. Trump had a much more commanding lead at this point compared to Moreno over Sherrod Brown. This is one of those Senate seats that will decide the balance of power in the upper chamber of the House. You see there that over 1.5 million votes have been cast for Bernie Moreno, just under 1.5 million votes so far have been cast for Sherrod Brown. As I've been mentioning, both parties have been sweating this race out. A lot of money has been pouring into this race. I'm curious to see if this is the last true example of Ohio being a battleground. It certainly looks like this race is a tight one, Andrew.
Yeah, that's right. So many resources put into the Senate race there in Ohio by Republicans and Democrats alike. And to your point, yes, Ohio has been called for Donald Trump. So we just brought you a lot of race calls for Trump. We do have a race call as well, though, in a solidly blue state. That's the Empire State as well. For Harris, let's take a look at this. Harris getting New York's 28 electoral votes there. The Associated Press calling New York for Harris. So we do want to bring into the conversation as well Tom LoBianco at 24 Site. Tom, bear with us here. We have a lot of live events going on right now. Let's stay in New York right now. Democratic Senator out of New York, Kirsten Gillibrand. She's speaking there at her watch party. Let's listen.
With our Cyber Academy, so kids can actually go to college free in exchange for public service as our cyber defenders. That will help us keep our country safer. So we have a lot of work to do, but one of the issues that I think people in New York feel most passionate about is guaranteeing women equality in this country. Making sure that we have our civil liberties and civil rights, making sure that we get to make those life and death decisions over our bodies, when we're having children, under what circumstances. We have to guarantee an equal rights amendment in New York State. I hope everybody will vote yes on Prop 1. Get the ERA added to our U.S. Constitution as well. So, other things that I hope we can work on in this next Congress, we need a national paid leave policy. We need to make sure that families don't have to make these tough decisions about caring for a child or a loved one and bringing home a paycheck. We have to make sure we keep supporting our workers, strengthening our abilities to join unions, to collectively bargain for wages and benefits. Yeah. We have to expand access to health care and keep bringing down the cost of medicine. And last but not least, I will fight against the politics of hate and division in this country. No student should feel unsafe being on a college campus because of anti-Semitism. Any kind of bigotry of any kind. We have to, as a nation, figure out who we are. We are a country that used to love one another, that used to care about our neighbors, that treated others the way we wanted to be treated. We have to focus on all that is noble, all that is right, all that is pure and admirable, and we have to lift that up into our national dialogue. Now, I know you're thinking that's a lot of things to get done, but we are going to have a Congress to pass this agenda. Because of the work the governor has done, because of the work that Hakeem Jeffries and I have done, we are going to have a majority in the U.S. Congress, and we are going to elect our new speaker as Hakeem Jeffries. Now, this coordinated campaign that the governor and I, Hakeem, worked on is extraordinary. We were able to work with Chairman Jacobs to build the greatest turnout machine that has ever been seen in New York State, and I'd argue anywhere in the country. We have 40 offices across these battleground districts, 23,000 volunteers, 150 staff. We've knocked on 1.3 million doors, and we have made over 5 million phone calls to voters. So I'm going to tell you tonight, we are going to see victories up and down the Hudson Valley, all across Long Island, in Syracuse. We are going to flip the House of Representatives right here in New York State.
All right, Senator Gillibrand there at her victory watch party. I want to put up the results there for Gillibrand. Quite an easy go at it against her Republican challenger there. This wasn't necessarily one of those competitive races, but also we just brought you the news. Harris getting all 28 of New York State's electoral college tally there, electoral votes rather. And so in the meantime, though, we do have yet another state call. Let's move from New York now to Texas, and the Associated Press is calling Texas for former President Donald Trump. So Trump getting Texas's 40 electoral votes there. This is with 58% of estimated votes counted. And I'm bringing into the conversation Austin Westfall yet again here. So Austin, right now, Texas going to Trump. Kind of knew that. New York going for Harris. Definitely knew that here. I think right now, and we want to bring in Tom LoBianco, because I think all eyes right now are on this Ohio Senate race, aren't they?
Yeah, all eyes are on the Senate race. And real quick here, just because we mentioned them, no, New York, Texas are not surprising, but nonetheless, they both carry a lot of electoral votes. So now that we see that New York is officially in Kamala's bin, she's at 99. Texas, Trump is at 177. I'm interested to see how this Senate race in Texas plays out as more results come in. I'm also interested, as you said, Andrew, in the Ohio Senate race. And Tom, I'll start with you here. What are the stakes of the Ohio Senate race? So far, we've seen that Trump has a sizable lead over Harris in Ohio, but we don't see that Moreno has the same sizable lead. He has a lead, but not that same sizable lead that Trump had. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, it definitely looks like the Senate is going to be a Republican at the end of all this. That's one thing feel pretty confident about with some of these early race calls. So, that's really important. But how Republican then? If Sherrod Brown's able to hold on, then that probably hurts the control there. But this is really interesting, this cycle. The split ticket voting. We talked about that before. We're starting to see this in play, especially working class voters, working class men. And that's a really big dynamic this cycle.
Yeah, and just to set the stage here, Tom LoBianco with 24 is going to be with us throughout the hour, kind of popping in, reacting in real time to some of these results. Though we do have some live events going on right now. I want to go out to North Carolina. Josh Stein there, the Democratic Attorney General, just won the governor's race over Lieutenant Governor Republican Mark Robinson. He's at his election night victory party here. Let's listen.
When we go together, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, not as independents, but as North Carolinians. And I know we can do this because I know who we are. I have met so many inspiring people across this state. Debbie and Cornelius, who tragically lost her son to fentanyl and is fighting to protect other families from that same fate. Lauren, a teacher in Greenville, who digs into her own pocket to buy school supplies for her students to give them a better chance. I want to thank everyone I have met along the way for sharing your stories with me. And to the thousands and thousands of people from every corner of this state who helped to build this campaign, I am forever grateful for your support. Thank you for believing in the promise of North Carolina. And if I didn't earn your vote in this election, I hope to earn your trust by working hard for you as your governor. I pledge to listen and work across party lines to do what's right for North Carolina, because no person or party has a monopoly on good ideas. To all of the smart and smart aleck young people on my campaign, thank you for the long days and late nights. Thank you for the hard and high quality work, and thank you for the laughter along the way. They, by the way, are incredible. I also want to thank Governor Cooper. Let's give that man the hand that he deserves. Roy Cooper has led our state with a steady hand through an unprecedented global pandemic. a 1,000-year storm in the West, and 2 500-year floods in the East. He expanded Medicaid, strengthened our business climate, and fought for our public schools. Roy, I could not be more grateful for your service and your friendship, and do not even think about changing your cell phone number on me. My parents, Adam and Jane, raised my brother Eric and my sister Gerda to try to do what is right, just like they did. It's truly one of the best gifts that parents can give to their children. I want to thank them, and I hate that my dad got a bug yesterday working early voting, and so they're watching it here on TV. Let's all say thank you, Adam and Jane. To my wife, Anna. Otherwise known as a rock star. Thank you for being the glue that keeps our family together, for keeping me focused on the things that really matter, and for being you. She is going to be a remarkable First Lady. We are blessed to have our 3 kids here today, Sam, Adam, and Leah. Mom and I love you very much and are incredibly proud of you. Fundamentally, this campaign is about you and all of the young people of North Carolina. We want all of you to want to call North Carolina home the same way we do. Friends, we are so blessed to be of this place. And while nowhere is perfect, I firmly believe that whatever may be wrong with our state can be repaired by all that is right. After all, North Carolina is where the Greensboro Four sat down and the Wright brothers took flight. It's where my father joined Julius Chambers and James Ferguson to form North Carolina's first integrated law firm to fight for equality and opportunity for all. It's where people come together to solve tough problems and believe that our best days are ahead of us, not behind us. This is our North Carolina. This is our home. Tonight, let's celebrate this hard-fought victory, and tomorrow we will get back to work to building a North Carolina that is safer, stronger, and more prosperous for everyone. Thank you, and may God bless you, and may God bless the state of North Carolina. Thank you.
All right, there you have it. North Carolina Governor-elect Josh Stein at his victory party there, thanking his family, thanking his supporters. Of course, the incumbent governor right now, Roy Cooper, term limited there. So this stays in Democratic hands. So Stein there besting the Republican gubernatorial candidate, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson there. And you can see right now the race is called by the AP, but there is right now a 15-point margin there. And this was to be expected. You see it there on your screen as well. All right, I'm Andrew Kraft. We are at the bottom of the hour. Let's step away. Let's step out of North Carolina. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be giving you the latest updates. We'll get an electoral college vote tally.
News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and let's look at that electoral college score right now, 177 to 99 in favor of Donald Trump. We look at the swing states now. Trump holds leads in North Carolina, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Harris holds leads in Pennsylvania and Michigan. It is too early for results in Arizona and Nevada just yet. We can tell you that Donald Trump has won Texas, Ohio, Wyoming, Louisiana, South Dakota. Kamala Harris has won New York, Illinois, Delaware, and New Jersey. An exit poll from CBS shows younger voters in Michigan are voting for Donald Trump right now. The deficit for Harris is in large part to younger men in Michigan who are more for Trump. Harris is doing better with older voters. Looking at the congressional makeup right now, in the Senate, Republicans lead Democrats 46-35, and in the House, Republicans lead 78-56. Let's look at how the election results are affecting markets so far with Bloomberg's Doug Krisner.
As election results trickle in, we're focusing on the U.S. dollar. Right now, the Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index is up about 0.7%. So dollar strengthening. We've got a weaker Japanese yen, a weaker offshore Chinese currency, and the Mexican peso, if you think about U.S. trade policy, weak as well, down about 1.6% against the greenback. U.S. Treasury yields drifting up, as I mentioned, with a 10-year now higher by 9 basis points to 4.36%, and a 2-year that's up 7 basis points at 4.24%.
That's Bloomberg's Doug Krisner. Thank you, Doug. And as Doug mentioned, the dollar is getting stronger. The yen is getting weaker. We can tell you now the dollar has risen to its highest point since July, and the yen is extending its losses to 1% as the dollar gets stronger. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us here on this election night. I want to bring into the conversation my colleague Austin Westfall here in the Live Now newsroom, and 24 Sites, Tom LoBianco. We all are here tracking all of this, and we have a lot to get to. Let's first start off right now. Where does the Electoral College stand at 9:30 Eastern, Austin?
Right now, the Electoral College, and let's get over to this because we are starting to see Trump 178 here, and we'll make sure that we've got the map up because Trump is getting, right now, he is just under 100 points away from that magic number 270. Harris with 99. There are still a lot of big Democratic states that are yet to be called. California, Oregon, Washington, those are going to be some of the bigger states that are going to put some more votes on the Harris side. Nonetheless, we're, of course, tracking all the battleground states, that being Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia. We have no results yet out of the two western battleground states, Arizona and Nevada. But as you can see so far right now, as we look at Wisconsin, at least where it stands, with 12% of the votes counted, it looks like this battleground state, Trump has a 4-point lead so far. That state leaning red at this early hour. Michigan, let's look at that. 12% of the votes counted. Right now, Harris has about an 8% lead in Michigan. Pennsylvania, what many consider to be, it's an easy argument to be made, that this is the most crucial battleground state of them all. Just over a quarter of the votes have been tallied so far, and right now, Harris has an 11-point lead over Donald Trump. We'll see if more Republican votes file in as the night progresses. Of course, every single poll has indicated that is as tight as can be. Moving down to some of these southern states, let's focus on North Carolina. 58% of the vote being tallied so far, and right now Trump has about a 4-point lead. Excuse me, that's looking more like a 3-point lead for Trump in the Tar Heel state. The final one I'll get to here is Georgia. Andrew, 75% of the vote tallied. 3/4 of the vote is in the Peach State. Trump has a 5.4% lead. That's where we're at right now.
All right, Austin, thanks so much. Tom, with whatever Austin just said there, kind of giving the roundup of the battleground states, can we glean anything from them, from the results coming in right now?
Yeah, and super helpful there. Look, the numbers that we are seeing right now from Georgia and North Carolina really seem to show him running away with it down in the Sun Belt, okay, especially in Georgia. All right. Now, this is very tentative, but some of the early exit polls we have seen have shown Trump performing, a lot more men voters showing up and supporting Trump. All right. And that's a really big dynamic. We've talked a lot about women voters with Harris. All right. But up in the Rust Belt, Wisconsin, Michigan, all right, Pennsylvania, especially in Wisconsin and Michigan, there's still not too many returns yet. I think I saw like 9% return, something like that, up in Wisconsin. So it's going to be a little while before we see what's happening up in the Rust Belt, Blue Wall. But down the Sun Belt, especially in Georgia, it's looking really good for Trump right now.
All right, we do have live pictures there inside the Trump-Vance election night watch party. We also have live pictures outside there at the Harris-Walz election night watch party as well there on the campus of Howard University in Washington. Tom, let's talk, though, now about some of these key Senate races that we're getting the results in. Let's focus our efforts first there in Ohio between the Democratic incumbent Sherrod Brown and his Republican challenger, Bernie Moreno. And we were talking before the break, Austin, you and I, about the Senate map and the Senate makeup here. This is where it stands between Moreno and Brown. What can we glean from this?
Yeah, and I'll just do a quick run through here because there was a number, and if you can come out to the map here, I want to show off a little bit of what we're working with here. So you'll see an odd color, that's yellow, that's because, and Vermont and Maine both leaning for their independent incumbents in both of those cases. Senator King and Senator Sanders expected to win in Vermont and Maine. That's why you see yellow. As far as battleground states go in the Senate, there are toss-up races, at least what have been considered to be toss-up races before the election, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. We've been eyeballing Nebraska to see if the independent challenger there could make some noise. It appears so far that that state is leaning red. So Montana, that's going to be an interesting to glean from once we start getting results in. But Tom, and this is something that we're going to be focusing on a lot, is Ohio. Many thought that the three-term incumbent senator there, Sherrod Brown, he has been elected in favorable Democratic years. I believe the first time he was elected was in light of the war that was back in 2006. That was a favorable year for Democrats. 6 years later, that was an Obama year. That was another favorable year for Democrats. The last time he was up for election was in the midterm after Trump was elected. There was a blue wave there. Is this the toughest challenge yet and the most polarizing race we've seen Sherrod Brown participate in so far?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, look, I was talking with one of my longtime Republican sources about this a couple days ago, and we're going to know a lot after we see all the tallies. But Democrats still have a problem up in the Rust Belt with working class voters. Okay. And, you know, big questions on what happens with the presidential. But Sherrod Brown always was one of the, more populist Democrats and was able to outpace national Democrats in Ohio. That might be changing. Okay. That's really important to watch. And if that is, I think that's a leading indicator of a bigger problem for Democrats right now. But again,
Tom, just want to chime in here. We are getting a race call because we're talking about Senate races, Tom. This is a Senate race in Maryland. This was an open seat here. Angela Alsobrooks, the Democrat, beating former Republican governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, there in this Senate seat. It's being vacated by retiring Democrat Ben Cardin there. So this seat stays in Democratic hands here. Tom, Austin, let's comment on this. A lot of Republicans, and you and I have talked about this race, Tom, had thought this could be a pickup, that Hogan would somehow materialize a victory. That's not the case here tonight. 55-43 with a little over half of estimated votes counted here. This was also Brooks to lose. She has not done that. The AP calling the race for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I remember years ago when then Lieutenant Governor Michael Steele ran against Ben Cardin. All right. And there was a lot of talk that he might be the Republican to do it, especially because he was the first elected black statewide politician in Maryland. Okay. He ended up losing by a pretty similar margin to that. Now, we don't know because we've only seen about 55% or so right now. But if that divide holds up, it just really goes to show for Maryland. I mean, Hogan was an incredibly popular governor of Maryland and did a lot to break away from Trump, which is what you need to do in, traditionally blue Maryland. Maybe you just can't win statewide, or at least in these Senate races.
Yeah. So, Tom, talk to us, because there are several examples around the country, correct, of some of these competitive races where the candidates have had to move more to the center in order to win votes in these battleground states. Can you talk about some of the notable ones?
Well, you know,
I mean,
we
did
used
Larry
to say
Hogan
40
try to
years
do that?
ago, or
Tom,
50
did Larry
years
Hogan
ago,
try
all
to do
politics
that
is
and it didn't
local.
work?
I think it's all politics is national now. I'm not sure that you can break away from this stuff. I remember I was up at the state fair in Maryland not too long ago, and you had the Larry Hogan signs next to the Donald Trump signs at the Maryland Republican Party booth, and you could tell he didn't want anything to do with it. All politics is really national now. It's changed so much from the way it used to be.
All right, we do have some more of these results coming in. We want to stay, though, on the Senate races. Let's focus our efforts on Texas right now. We just got this live picture up there. This is in Texas at the Colin Allred election night watch party here. Let's put up that race right now. This is quite a sizable lead Cruz has over Allred at the moment. 64% of estimated votes counted. Democrats were somewhat bullish here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. Were Republicans worried about how Ted Cruz would do? The race hasn't been called yet, but we see the vote spread here.
Well, you know, my Republican sources were never really worried about the Cruz race. I think you heard more from Democratic sources that, you know, they might be able to, ride a wave of support from women in this election, and, you know, maybe potentially get Allred up over the top. You know, Cruz historically has been fairly unpopular, as statewide go for Texas, but that doesn't seem to be the case right so far. But again, you know, we still got 1/3 of the vote still to come in. That could change, but you know, as these race calls go, it becomes harder later in when you have more of the precincts reporting. It becomes a lot harder for these candidates to overtake a gap of that size. So it looks like Cruz is in pretty good position right now.
Even though Texas is a deep red state, is there anything to learn from some of the counties within a deep red state like that?
Well, it's, you know, we've been talking about this as the gender election. And, you know, boy, you talk about, groups of voters that are not a monolith. Men and women are not monolithic. They do not vote uniformly. Okay. I think we really got to look at and especially as the exit polls come back more, you know, and we match that up with the actual vote tallies. I think we're going to have to look at some of the key dynamics of what people are talking about, what concerns them. You know, abortion is not the only animating issue for women. I heard a lot about the economy, too. And Trump seems to do better on the economy with women. But that's also not always the case, because Harris had been cutting into that. So it's elections are always wild. There's always surprises on election night.
Tom, while we have you, though, let's focus our efforts on one more key Senate race we're watching. Let's go to Wisconsin now, between Democratic incumbent Tammy Baldwin and her Republican challenger, Eric Hovde there. This is only with around 22% of estimated votes counted. Baldwin up over Hovde, not by much, though. How much trouble is Tammy Baldwin in? Should Democrats be worried?
Could be. This is, okay, so we were talking earlier about split ticket voting. This is one of the strangest things I've seen this election. Tammy Baldwin had put out some mailers or advertisements where the Democrats was talking about supporting Trump trade policies back when he was in office. I mean, the political bedfellows this cycle are some of the strangest I've ever seen. Now, she could be in good shape. One of the things, over on the 24 Site podcast, the Ground Game podcast I run out of 24 Site with my friend Patrick Finkston, we had on Charlie Sykes a little while ago, and he was talking about how Republicans used to have a very good ground operation in Wisconsin. Scott Walker, Wrights Priebus, back in the day, about a decade ago. Democrats have usurped that and have done a lot better under Ben Wickler, Democratic Party chair in Wisconsin. Ground games, turnout, operations, those things matter, especially in tight races like this. So, it's not unforeseeable that she wins and Trump wins too in Wisconsin. That's not out of the realm of possibility here.
Let's back up here. Let's go back to Political Science 101 for a minute, Tom. Explain to us why we're talking so much about the balance of power in the Senate and the House. How does that dictate how powerful of a president we're going to be working with?
Well, I'll tell you, you hear voters complain a lot about how Washington doesn't get anything done and need to return to normal order. It is incredibly hard to pass legislation through Congress and get it to any president's desk these days. And certainly a lot of that has to do with the Senate. Typically you'd need to be able to break a filibuster. And, with the exception of the courts, it's 60 votes. And, neither side, the traditionalists in the Senate, have wanted to touch that. Okay. So in a strong sense, no matter if you get a Harris presidency or a Trump presidency again, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to move things. Now, where that comes into play is those nominations, and whether you're able to get actually confirmed, the judges, but also the secretaries, the cabinet. If you're able to get them confirmed, that gives them more power, and that's really important here. And the Senate Republicans could be. I mean, they look to be in a very strong position right now. And if this goes as it looks, it might go with John Thune potentially becoming the Senate Majority Leader. And again, a lot of things still yet to play out within the Senate Republican Conference. That would give Senate Republicans and Senator John Thune out of South Dakota a lot of power.
Yeah, Tom, speaking of who would be in charge of Senate Republicans, who would be the leader there, we aired Rick Scott's victory speech last hour, and almost in the same breath, he moved on to yet another race he's waging, and that is for Republican leader in the Senate. He's thrown his hat into the ring. He's been very critical of current leader McConnell. McConnell stepping back, but will remain in the Senate here. So I believe those elections take place internally for Republicans on the House and Senate side, November 13th. We won't put the cart before the horse here. We'll focus on today's election. But I just want to get your sense here. Let's focus on the Harris-Trump campaigns right now. And Tom, you got a lot of sources within the Trump campaign. That's their election night watch party. We have this, what we call a switched feed here. We're seeing a lot of folks there with red MAGA hats. I also just saw one of these Jewish Trump voters as well. You see there people taking selfies. So, you can get a sense of the vibes. You can't really glean anything results-wise from how the parties are doing. Maybe a little bit later on you can. But what do you see when you look at this shot we have inside Trump HQ?
Well, this campaign, we've talked about this extensively throughout the election, is, as Trump campaigns go, has been remarkably disciplined. All right, and you got to give credit to Susie Wiles there and Chris LaCivita and Tony Fabrizio, kind of that trio at the top of this operation. All right, but there have been a lot of concerns. I mean, look, when the Iowa poll came out, Ann Selzer showing a lot of problem with women voters in Iowa for Trump. You started seeing that reflected by Trump himself on stage at these rallies. All right, whether it's performative on purpose or whether he's just getting tired and worn out, whatever the reason, he's very transparent in his emotions and how he's feeling about things. We've always known that about him. So I don't know. Look, the early results that we're seeing, again, go back to the Sun Belt, especially Georgia and North Carolina, doing incredibly well there. And if these exit polls turn out to be correct, with a larger number of men breaking for Trump, especially with minorities, Black and Latino voters, that gives a lot of confidence. All right. And you can see that reflected in the crowd. But there's still a lot of concerns with with women breaking hard for Harris. All right. In the last couple of days of the race. So still a lot to be determined here.
Yeah,
it's still,
Tom,
this is early.
It is early, Tom. I mean, I keep reiterating that point. We have a live picture, though, at Harris's election night watch party there on the campus of Howard University. Of course, she's an alum there. So let's talk about how the Harris campaign might be feeling. I've been citing this all day today, Tom. Senior advisor to the Harris campaign, David Plouffe, was on CNN last night at this time with Aaron Burnett. He says the campaign, they believe they can win all 7 battleground states. Now, is that what some political pollsters and pundits call hopium or not here? What does that mean?
No. I just, based on what we're seeing so far tonight, that looks incredibly unlikely to happen. And, that's standard for any campaign, top of the campaign. They're always going to say that. But look, we saw some of this, some of the early exits from NBC News. There was a lot of talk a couple days ago about the Madison Square Garden rally and the Puerto Rico comments really damaging Trump with Latinos and Puerto Ricans. Okay. That does not seem to have translated among the electorate, especially among Latino, the men, all right, and third and fourth generation younger Latinos, all right. So if that is the case, it's going to be a lot harder for her. Especially, you can't even talk about places like Arizona at that point. Nevada could be a little bit different. All right, Nevada's it's its own unique beast, but in Arizona, if that trend stays true, you can pretty much write off Arizona for Harris. And again, and then it becomes an issue in Pennsylvania. All right, we got to look at Allentown, the Lehigh Valley. All right, and you got to watch the returns coming out of there. That was the big concern. All right, Pennsylvania is really a must-win for Harris. Okay, it's not as much of a must-win for Trump, but for Harris, it looks like she needs that blue wall to hold.
Sure. Before we go, Tom, I got to ask you about Puerto Ricans, because there's an interesting statistic coming out of Osceola County. This is just south of Orlando. Right now, Trump, with 95% of the votes counted, Trump has 50%, Harris 48%. So Trump's up by 2 points. If I'm looking back 4 years ago, Biden won Osceola County by 14 points. So we're seeing a sizable shift. This county is important because I believe around a third of the population there are Puerto Ricans. What do you make of Trump seeming to gain some ground in a county like this?
Yeah. One of the big things, and this is really important, we had Mike Madrid on the Ground Game podcast recently. He specializes in Latino voters. Look at the way Trump talks about immigration, the wall, wanting to crack down on immigration. Especially, of course, now we should note here, of course, that Puerto Ricans are Americans, all right? But culturally, the problem was Tony Hinchcliffe dumping on the entire culture. It was very racist. Trump, if you listen to him, he talks a lot about illegal immigration. And among Latino voters, especially people who have been here 3 and 4 generations deep now, all right, they agree with that. And you start to see that movement among the younger Latinos towards Trump. And that's really key in understanding this dynamic. You also got to remember, too, especially for Latinos, large South American population, Colombian, Venezuelans, Cubans are getting older now, or the expats down in Florida, very traditionally conservative, socially conservative. And you got a lot of that down in South Florida, okay? So when we talk about voter groups, no group is a monolith. And sometimes Democrats seem to forget that.
All right, Tom LoBianco with 24/7. Tom, can't thank you enough. This entire year, you've been so instrumental.
Thank you, guys.
Austin, thank you, too. We're going to take our final commercial break of this hour. More results where that came from. We're also going out live to the Trump Vance watch party in West Palm Beach. Some of our reporters standing by. We'll see you in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us here as we approach yet the top of a new hour. In the meantime, like I said before the break, let's go out now live to West Palm Beach, Florida, to the Trump-Vance election night watch party. That's where we find Fox News' Rebecca Castor with the latest there. Rebecca, good to see you here. How's the energy there in the room?
Hey, Andrew. Well, of course, with this being filled with Trump supporters, they are excited and encouraged. The Trump campaign advisors, they tell us that they feel they're on track for a good night. They're encouraged by some of this exit polling that is coming in. The supporters here, they cheer every time a state is called for the former president. Trump, though, is watching this all go down from Mar-a-Lago, where he's watching the returns come in with family and friends. Former President Trump is spending election night where he kicked off his campaign in Palm Beach, alongside one of his biggest supporters, Elon Musk. And his team is feeling confident they can secure the magic number of 270 electoral votes.
For early voting, it was definitely, we didn't have as much male turnout, and that's not just for our party, that's for any party in terms of voting. But after today, we're seeing a change, and we're seeing such optimism.
Millions of voters braved long lines to cast their ballots, each with different issues in mind.
Under a new Trump administration, I think we're going to have more secure borders. We have everything going for us. But we're going to lose a lot of that if Trump wins.
But with the race neck and neck, it could be days before we know the final results. During a visit to thank his campaign staff, the former president expressed his frustration with the vote counting process.
They should do paper ballots, same-day voting, voter ID, and be done. One day, same day. And you'd have it by 10 o'clock.
No matter the outcome, the winner of this election will have a challenging task on the first day of their administration.
One of the most important jobs of whoever the president-elect is going to be has got to be unifying the country.
Donald Trump was asked earlier today if he'll accept the results of this election if he loses. He said, if it's, quote, a fair election, I'll be the first to acknowledge it. Andrew, back to you.
So, Rebecca, I had a question because remember, a lot of reporters have been asking Trump whether or not he would be voting in favor of amendment question 3 and 4 on marijuana and abortion in Florida. We haven't really gotten a sense of how he voted on that, though we do know those questions failed there in Florida.
Yes, so we didn't really get a clear answer from Trump on how he voted on those measures, but as you said, really not a big deal. They failed today.
All right, Rebecca Castor there live for us in West Palm Beach. Rebecca, talk soon. Thanks so much. All right, in the meantime here, we do have yet another race call that we have to make. The Associated Press calling Missouri for Donald Trump here. Let's take that. You see there, 30% of estimated votes counted right now, though this was enough to call the race for Trump there in the Show Me State. There you can see the vote margin. So in the meantime, we do want to bring it into the conversation as well. Remember, we're checking in on some of the trends going on social media as well, because we are about 15 seconds away from the top of the next hour. That means polls will close in some of these western states as well. Let's check in with Live Now's Christina Evans, and she joins me. Christina, what's going on social media right now?
Absolutely, Andrew. It's been a very busy night on social media as well. We're getting a lot of updates and able to see what's happening on the ground in certain states, including Arizona, one of those critical battleground states. I do want to show you another look here in our social center so you can get an idea of kind of how we're tracking these tweets and these other posts as they're coming in to our newsroom. But let's talk about the latest one that we're seeing out of Arizona. This is thanks to Fox 10. We're getting this update. What you're seeing now on your screen, this is an update there from Fox 10 reporter Kinsey Beach. She's there on the campus of Arizona State University in Tempe. As you can see, polls have closed in this location, but the lines are still long there, with students still putting in their opportunity to cast their vote for the presidential election and some of those other elections happening there in the battleground state of Arizona. So she did say that folks are encouraged to stay in line so that way their votes will be counted. But in areas like on college campuses at Arizona State University specifically, lines are still long, even though the polls have closed in Arizona. I do want to also give you an update here on Live Now. Another look at another place in Arizona where the polls are going to remain open. This is the Navajo Nation area in Apache County. This is all thanks to the Navajo Nation president that he filed a lawsuit to extend polling hours to accommodate voters. This after the Arizona Secretary of State said that voters in the county experienced issues with e-poll books and printers. So we do know there in the Navajo Nation, those polls will remain open until 9 p.m. local time. That's just another hour or so in the state of Arizona. So again, they will stay open so that way the Navajo Nation members can cast their vote there for the presidential election. Again, Arizona, one of those critical battleground states that we're keeping a very close eye on in this election. Will be interesting to see how these things shake out. But long lines are happening on social media, but folks remaining in place to make sure that their voice is heard.
Yeah, that's of course so true. If you're in line, stay in line. That's the message from some of these election officials there in some of these battleground states. Christina Evans, thanks so much. We'll talk soon. In the meantime here, we do want to kind of reset here at the top of the hour. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us. So we are going to go through some of the Electoral College vote tallies at the moment. If we could pop that up there in the lower left hand of your screen. You see where the tally stands right now. Trump with 198 Electoral College votes. Harris with 99, though it is still early, of course. Polls now closed in some of these western battleground states like Nevada, like Arizona, like Montana, like Utah as well. We're tracking some down-ballot races in those states, including some of these key Senate races there as well. In the meantime, we do have, let's go back to Michigan now. The Secretary of State there, Jocelyn Benson, she's addressing the press. Let's watch.
Clear and unequivocal will of the voters. This is an incredible day for Michigan, and this is an incredible day for our nation. My thanks to clerks and staff all across the state who worked long and difficult hours over the last several months preparing for today. Their preparation paid off in a smooth and successful election. And I'm grateful to so many members of my team here tonight who helped facilitate that work all throughout the state, all day today, and the many partners we have had along the way, from our faith leaders to, yes, our sports teams. And that's one of the reasons why we're here in Ford Field tonight, to really emphasize how important these partnerships were, from faith leaders to sports leaders to business leaders to law enforcement and our Attorney General, all of whom share with us a belief that our democracy is at its strongest when every voice is heard and when every vote is counted. Finally, I want to thank the millions of voters who participated in our democracy this election. Just like our Lions, you have made winners of all of us. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions. Go ahead.
Darylyn Horn with WWJ. Were there any instances of any issues or any misinformation spread today? And if so, how was that addressed?
Yeah, one of the candidates, the former president, said there was a strong law enforcement present in Philadelphia and Detroit. That was not true. We quickly debunked it. To the extent that other people were upset, it was usually just because they couldn't get one of these stickers. We saw some of them sold on eBay, which I don't recommend. But at the same time, we also made these stickers available at our Secretary of State branch offices for the rest of this week. But no.
All right, Jocelyn Benson there. She's the Secretary of State in Michigan, talking about all those I voted stickers and how the voting has gone there in Michigan as well. But in the meantime here, let's step away from Secretary Benson. We do have one of these candidates conceding the race there. Let's go out to Maryland. Former Republican governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, losing this Senate race to Democrat Angela Alsobrooks there. Let's watch.
Who inspired me to get into this race, and my entire family. Give them a big round of applause. I stepped up to run because I was concerned about what kind of a future we would be leaving for all of our kids and grandkids. And for me, the greatest title wasn't governor or senator, it's dad and pop-pop. I also want to thank our incredible campaign staff. Please give them a round of applause. They did an amazing job. And the thousands of volunteers all across the state who worked their butts off. You know, some campaigns drag on for years, but this one was a 9-month sprint. We ran full speed from day one, from early mornings and late nights to every corner of the state, knocking on doors, making calls and meeting voters from Oakland to Ocean City and everywhere in between. And we built a broad coalition of Republicans, Democrats, and independents, and we brought together first responders, police, veterans, longshoremen, teachers, small business owners, young people and retirees, and hardworking families all across this state. This was truly a grassroots campaign. And most of all, I want to thank my fellow Marylanders, especially all those in deep blue Maryland who were willing to put country over party and split their tickets. If the pundits and the politicians were more like the good and decent people that I meet every day on the campaign trail, our country would be so much better off. We got into this race for the right reasons, to fix the broken politics and to put our country on the right track. And we ran the kind of campaign that represents what politics can be and what it should be, driven by the people, not the party bosses, and focused on the issues that actually matter to families all across Maryland. From day one, this was the only campaign in America that reached out to Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike, because that's what it's going to take to solve the serious problems we face. Americans today are thoroughly convinced that we're hopelessly divided, that Washington is completely dysfunctional, and that our entire political system is fundamentally broken. The voices of the exhausted majority are ignored in deference to the demands of the loudest and angriest few who seem hell-bent on tearing America apart. No matter what happens in this election, we as a country must move beyond talking only with those we agree with, and we need to stop dismissing or even hating those we disagree with. We have got to find a way to come together, to listen, and to believe in each other once again, because there really is far more that unites us than divides us. While tonight did not bring the outcome we had hoped for, we can all hold our heads high. I can tell you, we left it all on the field, and I'm so damn proud of the effort. Thank you all. Thank you.
All right, there's Larry Hogan, former Maryland governor there, trying his hand at Senate politics, coming up short there in Maryland, losing to Democrat Angela Alsobrooks. Of course, Alsobrooks currently is an executive with Prince George's County there. And this seat stays blue. This is Ben Cardin's seat, longtime Democratic incumbent there. Ben Cardin opting not to seek re-election in Maryland. In the meantime here, we do want to get in some more race calls that we have right now as well. Let's move from Maryland to Massachusetts here, staying in the Senate. Elizabeth Warren fending off this Republican challenger in John Deaton. About 25% of estimated votes counted right now. The Associated Press calling the race there for Elizabeth Warren, the Democratic incumbent. She gets another 6 years in the upper chamber. In the meantime here on the presidential contest, on that level, we do have a race call. Remember, these states out west, Utah, Montana, Arizona, Nevada, polls just closed there 10 minutes ago, and we just got a quick race call there in Utah. Take a look at this. The Associated Press projecting Donald Trump will win Utah's 6 electoral votes there right now. Okay, let's stay out west right now. Let's move from Utah to Colorado there. Take a look at this. Colorado being called for Vice President Kamala Harris. You see there over Trump. 48% of estimated votes counted. Harris getting Colorado there. And you see that margin, 56 to 42, Colorado trending blue in the last, really, 3 cycles. If you think about it. So in the meantime here, let's take yet another quick commercial break. When we come back, more experts, more analysts, more reporters, more results, more race calls. Yes, it's still early. I'm Andrew Kraft. We'll see you in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We have more of these candidates taking the stage at their respective election night watch parties and rallies. I want to focus our efforts right now on the Texas Senate race there. The Associated Press has not called this race yet. Other outlets have, though. For Ted Cruz, you see there 67% of estimated votes counted. You see the wide margin in the differential between Cruz and Allred. Cruz just stepped up at his election night watch party. Let's listen live.
And I believe, and I hope and pray that Donald Trump will be reelected as President of the United States. I want to say thank you, number one, to my extraordinary wife, Heidi, my best friend in the world. Such an amazing partner on this magic carpet ride of life. And I want to say thank you to our two beautiful and amazing girls, Caroline and Catherine. You know, politics at times exacts a price on the family. And I want to say I am so grateful for their love and support, and you guys are amazing. Thank you. I also want to give a special shout out to Alexis Nungri. Alexis, thank you for your incredible courage speaking out for your precious Jocelyn, and your courage has made such a profound difference in this nation. We're going to. I also want to thank all the Democrats across Texas who crossed over and supported my campaign. Including especially Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. Who has stood strong for prosecuting violent criminals. And I want to thank every Texan across our great state who has stood with us in this fight, who worked and who fought for Texas. I want to congratulate Colin Allred on a hard-fought campaign. And I want to say to all of those who didn't support me, you have my word that I will fight for you, for your jobs, for your safety, and for your constitutional rights. But tonight, the people of Texas have spoken. And their message rings clear as a bell across our great state. Texas will remain Texas. You know, the media were ready to write off Texas. And Chuck Schumer poured in more than $100 million to our state. Well, I want to say thank you, Chuck. And I hope we win a few more Senate seats tonight because you wasted so much money in Texas. They deployed every trick, every lie, and every Hollywood celebrity they could find. Chuck Schumer tried to buy this Senate seat like it was a piece of Manhattan real estate. But he learned what we've always known, that Texas isn't for sale. And Texans can't be bought. Amen. Over the last 2 years, I've traveled every corner of this state, from the Panhandle to the Valley, from deep East Texas to far in West Texas. We have traveled 9,094 miles, 53 rallies all over the state of Texas. I've worn out my boots, at times my voice, and certainly the patience of my incredible political team, who did an amazing job on this campaign, and I think is the very best team in all of politics. And what I found traveling the state of Texas was worth every single mile. Because everywhere I went, I found something that gives me profound hope. Common sense isn't dead. It is alive and well in Texas. Everywhere I went, I met Texans who share a simple dream: to keep their families safe, to keep their freedom secure, and to keep their Texas values strong. Tonight, we are witnessing incredible results, especially with Hispanics across the state of Texas.
All right, you've been listening there to Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican winning re-election there, speaking to a crowd